Hey everybody, it's Timothy here again, and we're getting ready to go live on Twitch for the Queen Elizabeth Piano Competition final round. Super exciting, I know. Each night we're going to be joined by a past laureate of the competition to have discussions and conversations starting Monday with Remy Janier, Tuesday with Takashi Sato, Wednesday with Mariangelo Vacatello and Christine Lee, Thursday with my own brother Nikki Chooi, Friday with Henry Kramer, and Saturday with David Fung. We're also going to have exclusive interviews with the finalists themselves right off the stage, so make sure you don't miss that. Also going to have special guests, inspiring guests such as Marin Alsop join us in conversation. So make sure you join us and follow us on the Twitch channel and you won't miss a beat. I'll see you there. Hey everybody, it's Timothy here again, and we're getting ready to go live on Twitch for the Queen Elizabeth Piano Competition final round. Super exciting, I know. Each night we're going to be joined by a past laureate of the competition to have discussions and conversations starting Monday with Remy Janier, Tuesday with Takashi Sato, Wednesday with Mariangelo Vacatello and Christine Lee, Thursday with my own brother Nikki Chooi, Friday with Henry Kramer, and Saturday with David Fung. We're also going to have exclusive interviews with the finalists themselves right off the stage, so make sure you don't miss that. Also going to have special guests, inspiring guests such as Marin Alsop join us in conversation. So make sure you join us and follow us on the Twitch channel and you won't miss a beat. I'll see you there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in this world. Welcome to the last and final night of the Queen Elizabeth Piano Competition live on Twitch. We're going to find out about the results tonight. We're going to have the last finalists play. It's going to be really exciting. Can everybody just welcome themselves and let us know where you're all tuning in from? I'm in Montreal, Canada right now. We'd love to know where everybody is watching from for this final, very exciting night of the Queen Elizabeth International Piano Competition. So for those of you who are just joining in, my name is Timothy Chooi. I was the second prize winner of the Queen Elizabeth competition for violin in the last edition, which was in 2019. We did not have a competition last year because of COVID. Nothing really was happening. So now we have the piano edition. It is not quite the same because we don't have an audience this year, and we're going to have to improvise. And we've been doing Twitch streams for the past couple of nights since the first round of the final round. And it's been extremely amazing to see so many people joining us from all over the world. So let us know where you're coming in from. Do we have some LA? Oh, we've got someone from Los Angeles, Aaron Korea. Hello again. Never Cat One. You've been joining us every single day. That's awesome. From Ontario, from Brussels, from Belgium, from Turkey. Whoa, I think that's a new one from Turkey. Game on, says Torsica. Awesome. Somers Point, New Jersey. Awesome. This is awesome. Great. So yesterday we had a record amount of viewers. I think we had 500 people all at once, which is our record. Let's see if we can break that. I think we are, just because this is the final night. So tonight's guest is a past laureate of the Queen Elisabeth competition, and it's in 2013, David Fung, a good friend of mine as well. So we can't wait to introduce him in a bit. But before that, I'll just introduce how this show is going to go on tonight. So we will have guests joining us tonight as well. We're going to have Marin Alsop join us again. She joined us on Monday. So any questions that you might have, for Marin, type them in the chat box and we'll try to get to them. Daniel Rainey, manager of Keynote Artists based in London. Bruno Mantovani, who was the composer for the compulsory piece this year for the final round. And Hugh Wolf, the conductor. Also, we've been mentioning this throughout the streams over the past couple of days. We're going to actually have a giveaway. So there are going to be 4 CD boxes, collections of the Queen Elisabeth competition, 2 boxes of the Violin 2019 edition, and 2 boxes of the Piano 2021. It's all in the chat, so make sure you click on the link in order to enter. The winners will be announced at the end of the live stream. So Queen Elisabeth competition is a really, really important stepping stone for many young artists who really want to embark on an international career. This is one of the longest running competitions in the world, and you look at the laureates and they're basically giants, as it's giant names throughout history. It's held in Belgium, in Brussels every year, except for last year, of course. And it alternates between piano, violin, voice, and cello. Tonight, and since every other night, we've been talking with past laureates, commenting on the performances that have been going on. We'll be talking about the experiences of preparing for this competition, during the competition, and even afterwards. What does this exactly mean to young artists, and how does this really become a huge event and change artists' lives going forwards? So let's just have fun. We're going to enjoy the final night. Let's make this the best stream ever. I want you guys to all be engaged and ask questions. This is the final time that you're going to be talking with me on here, and you have to wait until the future, maybe 1 year from now. Oh, someone's coming in from New York City. Sunny Clarinet. Hello, how are you doing? All right, so let's introduce our guest for tonight, David Fung. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing really well, thanks to me.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience tonight? Where are you calling in from? For those of us who don't know who you are, tell us which year you did the competition and what you're doing now as well.
So I'm a 2013 Queen Elisabeth laureate, and so it's been quite some time, almost a decade. And I always look back at my time at the Chapelle and also with all the friends that I met at the competition with great joy and just really, really wonderful feelings. I'm currently calling in from New York City. This is where I'm based, and I also happen to be a professor at the University of Georgia, so that's sort of where I split my time mostly these days.
That's incredible.
Oh, and I should
awesome.
add that I'm actually Australian, in case you're wondering what the accent is. So an Australian transplant here in the United States.
You're all over the place. That's incredible. And we'll get to more about that lifestyle in a bit later on into the stream. But let's play an extract of David's performance in the final round of the competition. So for those of you to just remember what it was like to watch him live.
Bravo.
Well, it's been
What
a
were
while
you
since I've
feeling
seen
after this
that.
performance?
I think I was absolutely exhausted. I remember going on stage at 11 p.m. in Brussels time, and this is a 1 hour concerto, so I think this was probably well after midnight. And you don't have a lot of time with the conductor, and it was sort of just a really, I think it's just a feeling of great relief, knowing that you've sort of just gone ahead and done that.
That's incredible. In that year, you had the compulsory piece and your concerto. Did you have to play an additional piece on top of that, or was it just those
Right.
two?
During that year, I think we were required to play a classical sonata as well. So we began with the sonata, and then we moved to the imposed piece, and then we went to the concerto. So I think it was well over an hour of like an hour and a half of time on stage.
It's literally a triathlon, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good word, actually. Yeah, three very different things. And one of the crazy things that happened that year was that I actually also dislocated my finger like 2 days before the finals in one of the rehearsals. So I had to get a steroid shot and all kinds of really crazy things. So it was like one of the most terrifying performances I'd probably ever given in my life.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Why was it on top of all of that? I mean, that must be so difficult under so much stress. Well, what else was going through your mind at the
Yeah.
time?
Um, well, it was kind of a choice of, do I go on stage or do I not play? Do I sort of just make the best of the situation, knowing that if I didn't go on stage, I wouldn't have a chance to be a laureate. So, I made that decision to readjust some of my fingerings, as well as sort of just take the necessary painkillers and then sort of just go forward with it. So that was, that's always a story that I like to tell people because it was just such an insanely just stressful a couple of days.
And the insane thing is that when you go on stage, the thing is that you have to just forget all about all of that. And the audience, because they don't know what's going on. And it's just I don't think people in the audience realize what can be going on back behind the scenes. So I think
Yeah.
that's really, I did not know that was going on.
No, it's kind of interesting. I always, tell my students that we should always be gentle and kind to our colleagues and also to other performers because, I think there's this expectation that musicians are superhuman to put every last note out of hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of notes in order for a recital. And just to know that, hey, they're human too. They're going through certain things and, whatever it might be from just a phone call before the concert or just piano not working. There are all those different kinds of things that sort of, as a human body, we have to adjust to. So yeah, that's something that I always am mindful of.
Exactly. And we're going to look a little bit behind the scenes of what's going on when we talk to our contestant tonight. Just before we keep going on, we have a question here from Gaton. I don't know how's your name, Getwaneg. Hi, Timothy. How does the last day of competition work? When will we know who the winner is? So this stream's going to be the longest one out of all, just because we are going to be waiting until the end of the whole competition, basically, and waiting for the results. That could take, anywhere between 15 minutes or maybe an hour. And I remember when I did it, it was pretty quick, actually. It was, I think, within an hour. So hopefully, I like it when it's quicker because you get stuff done. But, if we don't get it done so fast, we'll have an opportunity to do lots of questions and answers, get to know me and David really well. So you won't have to see us for another year. Okay. So were you able to follow a little bit of the competition this year, Daniel? Oh, sorry, David.
I was able to.
Sorry, we have a guest.
You're right.
Sorry, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time, just because we have my manager Daniel coming on, and I've been looking at both, and I just keep messing up David and Daniel. I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. It's actually something that I'm used to. My partner's name is Daniel, so we always get our names mixed up from our friends.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and introduce tonight's contestant. This is our final performance for tonight. His name is Jonathan Fournel. He's a French pianist. He started playing the piano at age 7. His father is actually a teacher as well. So let's look at one of his videos that he recorded when he was at the Chapelle.
etc. Je m'appelle Jonathan Fournel, j'ai 27 ans et je suis français. Ça dépend vraiment de mon humeur, ça dépend des journées. Là, je sais pas, en ce moment, peut-être que dans ma tête, c'est Mantovani qu'il y a dans mon cerveau. Et puis le deuxième de Brahms. L'un des plus bels endroits du concerto, avec une ouverture, avec un magnifique solo violoncelle. Ça fera plaisir aussi à ma copine si jamais elle voit la vidéo, puisqu'elle est violoncelliste. En fait, on s'est regardé encore une fois tous les Seigneurs des Anneaux. Maintenant, on doit juste se refaire Star Wars, puisqu'elle ne l'a pas vu. Ah, mais d'ailleurs, il y en a un autre qui ressemble à Star Wars. Et c'est vraiment pratiquement la même chose. C'est écrit 60 ans plus tôt, je crois. Un truc comme ça, ouais. Je sais plus quoi, quelque chose comme ça. Je compte pas forcément en heures, c'est vraiment dès que j'ai la possibilité d'être sur le piano pour pouvoir travailler, je sais pas, 7, 8 heures, peut-être. Moins, plus, ça dépend. Ah, il y a eu des moments quand même dans les 2 dernières semaines où j'en ai eu marre, où je me suis dit, oh non, mais qu'est-ce que je fais là? Pourquoi je fais ça? Mais j'ai l'impression qu'à chaque fois, je reviens quand même au piano. C'est un aimant, j'en reviens toujours. Quelque chose que j'aimerais beaucoup apprendre en ce moment, mais bon, je vais voir quand j'aurai le temps. C'est neuf pour orgue, normalement. Ce type de musique écrit pour orgue, que j'ai toujours beaucoup aimé, soit aussi les œuvres de César Franck, parce que j'ai certainement été très influencé par mon père, qui était organiste. Je crois qu'en général, ouais, je dis le nom des notes, en fait, dans ma tête. Mais je sais pas, c'est automatique, de temps en temps je le fais trop, je commence à gémir, à m'étrangler, mais c'est pas la recette ou ce que je dois faire ou la liste de courses du lendemain. C'est pas spécial.
Well, that was nice to get to know Jonathan a little bit. So he's going to be starting off with the imposed piece, as every other contestant has in the past, Don Jonathan Ferric by Bruno Mantovani, and we're going to have an opportunity to speak with him after he performs tonight as one of our guest speakers. And then he chose for his final concerto, the second Brahms piano concerto, which we also heard Tomoki Sakata playing last Tuesday. All right, so David, we see the jury members coming on to the podium. I guess that's their podium. Do you recognize any of these jury members?
Well, maybe once they take their masks off. I did have a chance to look at the jury list, and just a lot of fantastic. There's Momo there. A lot of fantastic pianists and pedagogues. Really, truly, the who's who. The Queen Elisabeth competition does a really fantastic job of finding a really diverse and wide-ranging set of jury members.
Exactly. Coming from all over the world, it's really not just, sometimes some competitions focus European educators and professors or performers, but this is really in an international scope. We have the Queen coming in. Oh, she's wearing pink today. Every day she's been wearing a different color.
Very nice. So elegant. Those earrings, look at that. It's amazing.
I know. First day she was wearing like the silver bling, then she got green, purple. And every day, our Twitch watchers, they rank her colors and her style. So I like this one
I was
today.
just going to say that this is one of the most exciting parts of the competition, is sort of seeing the royal family as well.
Exactly. All right, so Stephanie is going to come on stage now to introduce our final competitor. Do you remember when you were backstage when Stephanie went on, right, to introduce, oh, David Fung's about to perform? How did you feel?
I think I was trying to pull my heart back into my body. I was really hard. It was really hard to sort of, just realize where you were. But, I think as a musician, you just sort of go on and you do it. Wow, this is fantastic.
I know, she's wearing bright yellow with that little feathery thing on her shoulder. That's awesome. I remember when I was waiting backstage, it was like my heart was about to pop also, because it was like I've been waiting 7 days, because they lock us up in the chapelle, and it's like this day is finally happening. And this time it's like, This is what we've been waiting for months and years, basically, and it's all going to happen within the next hour. And it's like, I just hope they do a good job.
It's really funny. I still remember before going on stage, I had it was an interview with an RTBF journalist, and I think he was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm going to get you a bottle of Bourgogne after this." So I was looking forward to like the bottle of wine and all of this stuff. It was just, it was really fun, just all the people you got to interact with.
Right.
Pretty wild.
We have a question here from Waha 105. David, when you met the Queen, what did she tell you?
She spoke to me in English and in Chinese. I was so impressed. She was just able, I think she was able to greet everyone in their own language. So it was kind of, I think this was Queen Fabiola, and she was so gracious and said, "Thank you so much for the music." And it was clearly something that's so much a part of the institution of culture in Belgium. So this is just kind of a really cool thing for us to interact with the royal family as well. There were garden parties. Timmy, was that the same as you? There were chances, I think, to do these sort of outside parties and meet and greets. So that was really fun.
Yeah, such a unique experience to meet a queen in the 21st century. That's really incredible. All right, so I think Jonathan's going to go on stage now. Let's see how he's feeling and if he's nervous or not. Oh, okay. Someone's removing their mask.
Majesté, dames en heren, mesdames et messieurs. Vooraleer wij een laatste maal het plichtwerk gaan beluisteren, zou ik hiervoor graag de componist danken in zijn moedertaal. Cher maître, cher Bruno, tes jardins sont visiblement français, structurés, comme ceux de ton compatriote le nôtre, ou encore colorés et secrets, comme les jardins de Giverny. Quelle riche palette de couleurs, quelle cartographie de sentiers qui parcourt apparemment sans fin cette partition raffinée et imagée. C'est sans doute le gazouillis des oiseaux qui nous a le plus marqués. Peut-être celui de quelques oiseaux exotiques pour une impératrice de pagode, ou tout simplement celui de l'émerveillement de ta petite fille Julia devant ce monde qu'elle découvre. Et nous le découvrons avec elle, avec délice et complicité. Merci de tout cœur.
So we're thanking the composer now, and he's getting his spotlight. It must be such an incredible experience to listen to your piece with 6 different competitors with commitment, because that's what we're given over the past 7 days.
And probably completely different interpretations as well, which is just really, really wild to hear it just every which way.
Exactly.
It was actually nice to hear a little bit. I caught some of the French to learn a little bit about, the background of the piece, and the sounds and the smells that we're going to have, and that it was written for his daughter, I guess, from what they said. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Exactly. Here he is. All right, Jonathan. Bon chance, bon chance, bon chance. You can do it.
This is really exciting.
Okay. And did you have a page turner when you were doing your composed piece, the imposed piece?
I think I did. No, sorry. I remember stitching. Like I did a bit of a arts and crafts kind of thing, and I extended all the pages. I don't think I had a page turner. I might have. I have to go back and look at that video, but I did use music, and I think maybe one competitor managed to memorize.
Oh, there's always that smarty pants, right?
And put everyone else to shame.
I know. All right, let's listen to the first 3 minutes of this piece in silence. So we've heard this piece 5 times now, and this is the 6th time that I'm listening to it. I don't know, David, if you've been following along, but this is kind of in between the style of Sergei Redkin, who played on the 4th night. He had a very percussive approach, as opposed to the others where it was much more impressionistic. This is kind of in between. What do you think about this piece so far? Just since you were in this exact same situation right now, what was going through your mind as you were performing this? What were you thinking about, and what do you see that he's doing right now?
You know, I think I feel like he's really trying hard to bring out the character in the music. I think one of the challenges is that you have to very convincingly play a piece that the audience may not know. I think one of the differences is when you play a concerto that everyone knows, there's an expectation, but now you have a chance to really reinvent and create your own set of expectations of what the music is saying. So I think he's actually being incredibly coloristic, and there's a great deal of virtuosity and dynamicism, I think, in this playing as well. I hear a lot of clarity. I hear a lot of color making in the French tradition. So it's sort of interesting what you're saying about, Mr. Was it Sergei Redkin as well? That was sort of playing a much more accented approach. This is definitely a little bit more fluid, but has that clarity and the power as well. So there's, I think he's definitely bringing out, Jonathan is bringing out this really wide coloristic palette from the instrument, and that's just really, really lovely to hear.
Exactly. I wonder what everyone in the Twitch stream is wondering. Who has been your favorite interpretation of this piece so far? And also, is this piece starting to grow on all of you? Because you guys, some of you, Otter House 22 has been watching every single stream so far. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have a question here from Jaggy Stardust. Does the fact that Jonathan is French and Mantovani is also French, does that help do you think that might help Jonathan win the competition? That is kind of an interesting question. David, what do you think?
I think, with such a wide jury, I think there's a great deal of fairness in these competitions to a certain degree. Everyone has their own opinions about their rankings, and it goes into, deliberations, and then of course a ranking comes out, and it could be completely opposite to what one jury member actually wants. So all in all, I think with competitions, there's a lot of luck involved. But I think where Jonathan has this advantage is that he really seems to understand this fluidity and the clarity, in French music. And I think this really sort of carries that tradition forward of Messiaen, the bird call music, as well as some of the more sort of percussive, angular kind of areas, and this sort of dichotomy that we're hearing. As well as, I think, it's sort of interesting that there's a lot of music that's sort of inspired by Ravel. I'm thinking of the Italian composer Sciarrino, who wrote a lot of pieces, Anamorphosi, I should say, and then also Anamorphosi, I think, anyway, and De la Nuit also, which draws on pieces by Ravel, which actually sort of spin off into their own compositions. And I feel like this is sort of in this ilk, this genre. So, this might very well be in, Jonathan's ears. And I think that might actually come out in the performance with that kind of knowledge. I think that could be an advantage.
Yeah, I think that someone in the comments, they had mentioned it like, this is more like Ravel. So whoever, I don't remember who wrote that comment, but if you're here, show yourself. But let's listen to more of this piece. I'm wondering where he takes this now. It's so interesting because I feel like as the orchestra gets to play this more often and often, they also start to develop their own interpretation. So that's why, I don't know, for many of you Twitch stream, viewers right now, I think there is this kind of unspoken rule or rumor that playing near the end is usually more beneficial just because of so many factors. The fact that you get to hear more people play this piece before, the fact that the orchestra is more accustomed to the routine and are much more comfortable. David, do you think that, I mean, which night did you play on, first of all?
I think I played on the second to last night, so there was a little bit of this advantage, I think, playing near the end. But I actually wanted to draw sort of attention to that previous passage that we heard with this incredible trill. I mean, there's kind of a nod to the Lisztian virtuosity of La Campanella with the melody coming outside of this trill. And there's also this really direct kind of connection here to also Ravel's piano concerto, the cadenza, with this beautiful, fluid, endless trill. So there are these kind of interesting nods with this piece to a lot of music before it. You know, even back to, say, Beethoven, a lot of the late works have these trills with this beautiful coloristic, sort of pointillistic things sort of coming out of the texture. And I'm hearing a lot of that here. I mean, just this stuff sounds like it's going to be really incredibly difficult to put together with the orchestra, because the orchestra is actually doubling stuff randomly in the piano line. I don't know if you can sort of catch those things, but that to me is like, whoa, like that coordination can't be easy.
No, and especially near the end, there is a unison with, I think, a French horn. So it's like literally one note that the piano plays and has to match together. I think those are the most, I think may seem simple in some ways, but it's one of the most difficult parts about playing a solo instrument with a completely different, you know, distance-wise and timbre-wise as well. So do you remember your piece when you had the imposed piece? Was there any extended technique that required you to do? Because when I did it, I had to stomp on the ground like 5 times.
Does it? I feel like that reminds me of another. It was a Tchaikovsky competition that had a piece called Stomp. And was it like Corigliano? Exactly. And there is some of this, I think. This idea of like you have to play your fiddle behind your back, or something. I don't know, something like do it upside down, play piano backwards or whatever. But this is kind of wild when it's sort of not what you're used to playing, especially, you know, if you have to go into the piano, sometimes you have to pluck strings, but this looks pretty standard. My piece was pretty standard as well. And, you know, you get into that kind of tricky area with extended techniques like crumb, where you're plucking inside the strings. You know, that can really be challenging because you can sometimes damage the instrument if there's too much moisture or if there's too much force. So, you know, that sort of stuff, I'm sure the competition's also thinking about.
Right, exactly. So we're coming near to the end of this piece. Let's just give a listen to how he's going to end his interpretation of this compulsory piece. Bravo! You're sort of halfway done at this point. So we have a question here from Zuzu. Can the candidates listen to one other's performance? Aren't they in quarantine? You know, it's funny, going into Chapelle now, it's kind of like going to quarantine now, isn't it?
It's probably no different, actually. It's like from quarantine to Chapelle, it's like, oh, this is how I've been living the last year during the pandemic.
Exactly.
Well, to answer the question,
here?
Yeah, so, you know, they actually took all of our devices, our laptops, our phones. We weren't allowed to have any electronic devices when we entered the Chapelle, and we entered staggered. So, you know, we would only enter 7 days before our scheduled final date. So, you know, it was pretty fair. But, you know, when you're in the Chapelle, you can absolutely hear through the door what other candidates are rehearsing. So, you know, there is a little bit of an advantage, you know, not being the very first person at the Chapelle. And certainly I think, you know, all the orchestra members get to hear themselves perform and practice this day to day. So, you know, by sort of answering your question, Yupi Zuzu, there is this idea of, like you can listen to a certain degree, but they do keep it pretty fair. You can't sort of tune in and watch this online in secret because they kind of take away those devices at the very beginning.
Yeah, that
was
really
that like that
bad.
for you, Jimmy? Yeah.
It was for me like that as well. And I actually played the second to last night on the Friday. So for me, I'm similar to you. I came in, I was third last to play, and I got to hear a lot of people practice it. And I remember the first couple of people were like stressing out, and I was like, oh, let me listen. Yeah. We have one more comment before we get into his Brahms concerto. He started a bit pale, not as colorful as Dmitri Sin, not as bright as Redkin, but from the repetitive notes on, it came to life. Interesting observation. But let's get ready for his Brahms concerto, because we had one other person play it, and I've heard that this is not quite a regular piece to choose for the final round. What are your thoughts, David?
It's really funny. I think a few years ago, Queen Elizabeth made like a fun post on Facebook, like top 10 most performed concertos in the finals of Queen Elizabeth. And at the top, you really have the usual suspects. You have, your Rack 3, Prokofiev 3 second, Tchaikovsky. They were really played a lot, Rack 2. And then I think it did actually make the list, I think, at the very end. Brahms second, I think maybe behind even Brahms 1 did make the list. But I would say that, you'd hear it once every session at the Queen Elizabeth. And this year we were hearing it twice. Some years not at all. You hear a lot of Tchaikovsky's and a lot of Rack 3s and Prokofiev seconds. It's really funny when I applied to the competition. I remember my teacher saying, "Bring a fancy concerto; they'll appreciate that." And there's this sort of history of playing difficult, really really difficult works in the finals to really show the jury what you're capable of doing. So yeah.
Well, let's see what Jonathan is up to right now. Oh, I think we're having a congratulatory remark from Gilles to the jury members. Today's a special night. All right, let's see what Jonathan. Oh, this waiting. I don't like this waiting part.
Mm-hmm. There's so much pacing. It's like the room of pacing. It's like...
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, before I go on stage, I always say 3, 2, 1. Kind of just launch me off. I don't know. That's what I do just to get my mind prepared rather than just slingshotting my body out to the stage. But it must be so weird to not have an audience just to greet you. I mean, we have a small audience, but... All right, let's give our attention to his opening performance of the Brahms Piano Concerto No. 2.
Yeah, the beautiful horn call that comes alone. It's a very unique way of starting the concerto, and then the piano replies with chords in the distance.
After hearing this a little bit, what are your overall feelings so far?
I was just saying that this is one of the most sort of difficult openings because you start right away, you don't have any time, you jump right into it, and you start with a cadenza. And I think he managed all those incredible leaps. We had that cool aerial view that, Queen Elisabeth Competition is really famous for. You come from the top and you see his left hand traversing the entire length of the keyboard, and he managed that with great poise. And I think one of the hardest things about Brahms, this is for the Brahms Violin Concerto as well, but for both of his concerti and all of his piano works, it's this idea of line, really, really long line, finishing, the orchestra sentences, and sometimes the orchestra has to dovetail and finish the sentences that the piano has, and it's ultimately a really different kind of concerto than, say, Rachmaninoff, which is really filled with notes, very dense, so the music kind of spins itself forwards. Here you have to create line with, in some ways, a more sparse musical landscape. And what I love about this so far is this incredible sense of line and this cantabile that he's really, managing just really elegantly.
Speaking of lines, Waha 105 says, is it really helping that Jonathan, we can see that he does sing as he's playing. And I do see some pianists actually, their mouth moves as they are playing. Can you guide us, be our Sherpa, exactly what's going on when you do that?
This is in response to Waha 105. I think absolutely, like this idea of singing actually takes. Oh, we have to listen to this. This is a very tricky passage. Look at these jumps.
Okay.
Wow. So that's one of it'll come back again later in the piece, but that's one of the most tricky parts of the concerto. And you can see his arms moving back and forth, that despite the kind of time you can have to play these notes, it has to happen very fluidly and musically. So again, these jumps. And then now we have a little solo passage again. The left hand here is the one to watch. Very, very dramatic moment. Coming up now. You can tell he's taking the time to make this expansion. Yes. And he gets it all, which is fantastic.
Is that like a common passage to kind of mess up?
Yeah, just because there are lots of leaps, and he took his time. He had a lot of poise, and I think, you really get a sense of that. He's able to wield time when he's playing alone. And this passage coming up has a lot of jumps, but he's got to keep in time. So the left hand is really mad.
Yeah.
Right, and you've already been playing sort of a good almost 10 minutes on stage, and you're like, oh, I'm only halfway through the first movement. So this is the end of the exposition. Very nice. So, just going back to the question of singing, I think that's a really good question. There's a little orchestral interlude, and maybe I can use this as a chance to talk about singing. I think it's very important for pianists to be able to release themselves from the physical bounds of their body. I think so much of what we do is in the fingers, in the body, and because it's sort of like, when a child learns to walk, we have to coordinate like 100 different movements to make a sound or to make the sound that we intend. And sometimes shortcutting to just imagining that sound and letting the body respond to that sound is actually more effective, I think, than sort of thinking about the technique or how high to lift or how relaxed you should be. Sometimes just singing actually allows you to produce that line very naturally, and it gives you that connection more strongly from mind to body. Does that kind of, I don't know if Waha or Timmy, if my description of that makes sense, but singing along with the music, yeah, it really helps for me. And,
I think that is so... I was thinking, because I think that for the piano, because you have so much more notes, it's easy to get lost with all the inner voices, the bass line. So therefore you need to, because at the end of the day, the top of the melody and that voice, you got to find and weave through it. Whereas I think for violin, it doesn't really happen as much. First of all, we're like literally like holding the violin. So if we want to sing, we're going to hyperventilate at some point, I think. But also because I think as a violinist, right? But usually as a violinist, we're always usually playing, we don't have as many inner voices, it's just physically impossible. So I think that helps explain to me why I think it does help give you clarity and also decompress when you have a sea of so many notes. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Definitely. Another way to explain it, I think, is this idea that piano is actually a percussion instrument. Once you strike a note, the note decays and that's it. We can't keep a long note alive by vibrating or keeping the bow going or increasing the airflow through our vocal cords as a singer. So what we have to do is actually create this illusion of line, and sometimes singing as well allows those mechanics to happen much more clearly. And historically, pianists like Glenn Gould really relied on singing and maybe phonating and going ta-ta-ta-ta to create even technical control. So there are lots of things that the voice can do. The voice is like the first thing that we learn as babies. We cry. And that connection is something we built from day one. So it doesn't surprise me that is very much a part of, emoting and also connecting to our instruments.
People in the Twitch viewer in the chat, they're like, David, you're such a great you're so good at describing the mind and bodies.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I want to bring the attention back to Jonathan again. This is sort of the end of the development. You can hear this transition to the beautiful recapitulation.
Let's hear it. Let's put this on full screen and hear it. These big leaps as he's playing these passages. And David, I wonder if you could help guide us. It's like, Rachmaninoff is clearly very technically difficult, and so is Prokofiev. It just, it's a showstopper, when you look at it. Brahms is a little bit more deceptive, and that's even for the violin concerto. So, because all the technical challenges, they all are musical gestures, as opposed to sometimes when you hear Prokofiev, it's like, this is very a mechanic part, and you can really 100% just focus on almost like just, getting it out there with a headstrong approach. But what would you say is the most difficult thing about choosing the Brahms concerto and having a successful performance as opposed to, like, say, Prokofiev second, third, or Rachmaninoff third?
I think without being too generalistic, I think there is this idea that Brahms is like a musician's music as opposed to, say, Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff, which is definitely much more virtuosic and really appeals to the public. So, I don't personally hold that view, and I don't believe in putting things in boxes, but I definitely understand this kind of dichotomy of sort of a Brahmsian virtuosity, which definitely is much more physical from the center, from the core, as opposed to, say, Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff, which can be more physical from the fingers. And so you hear a lot more textures, a lot more moving notes, probably in the great Russian concertos. And I think with Brahms, there's always this idea of creating long line. Like, you sort of think about the really arresting opening of the violin concerto as well. You have this big flourish, and it kind of, you have to keep this tension all the way to like the end of the first page. It's kind of like nuts, even through the rests. And that's something that I think makes Brahms really powerful, but also really, really challenging for the performer, because you need a lot of foresight. You need to think ahead.
Yeah.
So we're about to close the first movement here, which is really triumphant.
Okay.
Fantastic ending. It's really a triumph after 20 minutes of playing this massive journey through many landscapes.
Oh my goodness. Brahms is always such a chamber musician in the way he writes his concertos. Everybody plays an integral and important role to making a successful performance, and the pianist has to remember that.
Yeah, there's got to be that really tight kind of interaction. And here we go, the big trill at the end. The signature octave trill of Brahms. And after this, you want to be done. You're like, I'm finished, it's over. But there's another 3 movements.
I can imagine.
Wow, he sounds fabulous.
Did
That was a really beautiful interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, because after I played the Tchaikovsky, people were clapping after the first movement. Did people also clap after you played their first movement as well?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't think so. Not for me. But I feel like sometimes it happens. I just don't recall whether that happened for me.
Right.
But
right.
this is, I think, the first movement, and this is the scherzo of the Brahms second. It's very rare to have a scherzo in any really of these piano concertos. I think it's one of a few that has a scherzo movement. But this is a typical Brahms scherzo. It's serious. It's sort of scherzo only in terms of maybe tempo and in certain elements of the mood. But this is a really challenging movement. I think for me, there's a middle section which has these incredible double octaves that have to be legato and pianissimo. And that's something that I think all the listeners on Twitch could really sort of try to catch in the middle section of this scherzo.
Take a listen to this movement. that lyrical section.
So then we have this. I think it's actually still. I think it's Olsi Leka. I think he's still the cello soloist in the orchestra,
Yes.
and he's going to play this beautiful, heart-wrenching opening. It's
Here it is.
kind of used again in another Brahms song called Immer leiser wird mein Schlummer. So it's just a beautiful kind of nod to his own music about slumber. And it's funny to me that you mentioned the Rachmaninoff connection, because Rachmaninoff had said he always wanted to create a concerto that had this beautiful solo quality from another instrument in one of his concertos. And I think the second concerto comes really close, with this beautiful middle movement too, with the flutes and the woodwind solos as well.
Yeah, it has that fluidity of conversation. Jackie Stardust just asked, made a statement. One thing that he noticed this week is that the pianist that he's playing is so emotional. It's almost like they're going to cry out of emotion. Oh, wow. You got to be 100% into it, So, of course, when you feel that adrenaline and the emotions, I mean, when we play music, it's got to come very genuine from our brains and our hearts. So, of course, it's going to be like an out-of-this-world experience.
Absolutely. And the music is too good not to give like 200%. So we're about to head to now the first entrance of the pianist after this beautiful orchestral opening. It's really gorgeous, so beautiful.
One of the tricky things about Brahms that I've always found in all of his compositions, whether that be his violin concerto, his sonatas, his piano concertos, as I'm hearing it now again, is the hemiolas that he incorporates and makes it very confusing to sort out. For those of you who don't know what a hemiola is, it's basically when the composition is written in a certain meter and should be down, like, you know, downbeat, offbeat, but it gets all convoluted and becomes into like a different pattern within a more concrete. I don't know if I'm describing it properly, but do you find that also a huge challenge of Brahms, of the hemiola?
Yeah, I mean, he loves hemiola. I mean, he is this master craftsman, and wherever he can, he'll try to, juxtapose the three patterns in what we'd otherwise hear as a pattern of two. So you have these staggered kinds of entrances. I think what you're also saying before about this kind of cool, like convolution, I guess. It is very, very convoluted in that way. But one thing that I think is really beautiful about this movement is you have this opportunity to play the solo after the orchestra's done, and this very first opening, these ascents that you're hearing now, actually in the background, these very slow arpeggios that you're almost crawling across the whole landscape of this whole keyboard. It's like you're walking the stairway to heaven, and there's something incredibly transcendental about this movement. Now, this moment is one of the most suspended, gravityless movements. Maybe we can listen to this. So beautiful.
Let's listen.
What a beautiful lullaby. I mean, so incredible. And then, of course, the cellist returns now. So wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah, and you can sort of get a sense of this, like, reaching, these large intervals that Brahms is sort of weaving into the piano line, these huge intervals in pianissimo. It's sort of this idea of, you think about the voice doing that, going from this really high register down and then up again. And it's just, you're suspended in these harmonies that have these common tones. And it's this kaleidoscope. It sort of just keeps changing. The harmony keeps changing, but we stay very still. And that whole passage that we heard in the background, the winds have to hold these unbelievably long notes. You have to just keep the breath in. You actually saw the clarinetist, she had to do some circular breathing. And I thought that was really cool that the camera just captured that she and was still making sound.
Oh, wow. Exactly.
So now we have this cello interlude, cello solo again with obligato piano on the top. Beautiful colors that the piano is making with trills and arpeggios coming up. And at the very end of this concerto, in this movement, we're going to hear again this Stairway to Heaven, where he plays these arpeggios from the depths of the piano all the way up to the highest register of the piano.
We have a comment here,
here are the
in praise of you.
Thank you, Benny2561. So this is the final breath of the slumber of the third movement. Reaching arpeggios. And then we have now this trill, this kind of almost cadenza-like trill, which closes this movement. Sending us to sleep. And that almost recalls the opening of the concerto as well, the same kinds of voicings in the arpeggio that begins the whole journey. And to finish this journey, we're going to have a very lighthearted, almost jovial finale, which is
oh yes,
grazioso, very beautiful. So it's sort of a German dance in two, as we can hear. It's really fun, and he's having fun with it as well. Jonathan is really changing the mood. No? Now, this passage coming up is you have these third scales, all in thirds. You can catch them. And the second time it comes back in both hands, which is almost impossible to play. So we'll have to watch for that when it comes back. But you know, this is what makes this piece so multidimensional. You have to be so focused and be willing to turn the corner all the time with mood. And I think this is, for me, an incredibly enjoyable performance. So this part that's coming up almost has a kind of, you know, zingaresa kind of feeling to it, or folksy, almost sort of, you know, without using the word gypsy, that's probably the way that Brahms is hearing this theme.
This is classic Brahms right here, what you're hearing.
Right? Like one of the Hungarian dances or something. It's just so charming and rustic at the same time.
Exactly.
The orchestra's loving it too. And then now we go back to a sort of more classic German dance. The birds make a return from the Mantovani to this piece. We hear little alpine birds now.
So a conversation between the two.
Right. You know, it's so interesting. I'm thinking also to the Brahms violin concerto finale too. This sort of the thirds, you know, that begin this. It's again very flat-footed, kind of very interesting that there's these sort of recurring themes that we get through the concerti as well in the finales. What are the challenges for you when you play Brahms, and what's the most challenging part to me in the Brahms violin concertos?
Yeah, I think with Brahms for the violin, it's one of those pieces that gets harder and harder the more you. That I think is because technically, it's already very difficult because he's coming from a pianistic approach. So therefore, there's a lot of groupings of fives because I think you guys use all 5 fingers, and we only have 4. So technically, that's already a big challenge. When it gets more challenging, even more so, is the fact that I think we have to think pianistically, because what makes sense on the violin between leaps on the violin, it's very easy to make a big leap between octaves, tenths, or even beyond registers, but finding a way to still have that impact of coming the perspective of a pianist, orchestral perspective is always the most challenging. And of course, weaving in and out. And on top of all of that, it's really the stamina, because Brahms has such long lines that you feel like at the end of it, you're exhausted. Musically, it takes everything out of you, because you have to be, because that's how he wrote his concertos and that's his style. It's just, it takes everything out of you, and at the same time, it's so fulfilling. It's one of those things where you just know it's going to be a marathon and you're going to love it at the end, but you're going to be exhausted afterwards.
I love your explanation of that, actually, that, there are certain composers that think about their music for certain instruments. And I would say you're right. Like, what makes the violin music of Brahms so hard is that it's super pianistic. He's thinking for the piano, and suddenly you have to do all of these crazy things like thirds, which is easier for us, or tenths, much easier for us than it is for you. But there are things that for violinists, they have much more easy, repeated notes are much more easier for you than it is for us. All you have to do is this, and we have to find a way to make notes repeat.
Yeah, I would say that sometimes in the violin, there's like these doubled notes, and we just play it as if it's like a showpiece. But you realize on the piano, it takes extra effort to play these, the tremolos and etc. So for us, we take that for granted, and that's the challenging part, I think.
You're right, like Erlkönig. I mean, for you, it's sort of just a new bow stroke. For us, it's like, oh, how do we get the octaves to come out? Exactly. Just shake. Just be nervous. So we're coming back to the return in this rondo now, to the theme, which is, now we see the thirds, crazy thirds, I think, in the right hand here. Ah, okay. It's another tricky passage. I'm sure at this point, like, most people who are playing this piece, we just want it to wrap up. It's still going.
We're nearing the end of this piece now.
We have now this return of the sort of Zingaresa sort of theme. You can also kind of hear the piano underneath is doing a hemiola above, like dom bom 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 bom, above this very lush Brahmsian melody. I mean, it's truly symphonic, this music. You're right about the whole chamber music aspect of this. I feel like we're just another instrument in the orchestra rather than a soloist in a typical sense.
Exactly. What I also love about Brahms is, like, you think he has given everything, but he gives more, and he gives more. It's always that one extra leap that keeps going up and up and up, and then you're like, oh.
Right. And then we just moved from this really sort of, to another very lush section out of a much more rambunctious, section.
Exactly. Thank you, Shin240818, for your nice comment.
Yes, thank you, Shin. So basically, we're going to the finish line now. After this section, we're going to reach the coda, which is going to be a little faster. We're going to pick up the tempo and bring the piece to a close. And here we go. So you can hear that the 6/8 is pushing forwards.
Bravo! That is amazing.
Bravo.
Come on, people on Twitch, let's clap for him virtually.
Bravo! What a marathon. He looks pleased,
What
and he
a
should be.
marathon.
What a beautiful performance from both the orchestra, the cellist, the pianist. He looks very
What
pleased.
stamina.
Yeah. And an incredibly
So we're going to be
cantabile.
Exactly.
Please go on.
We're going to be joined by Marin Alsop right after this. She's already connected with us. So any questions that you have, everyone who are viewers on Twitch, please push your questions up and we'll try to answer them as much as we can. That's nice. You get to bow again. When I did it, you only could bow once.
Yeah, they must have changed that for your year. I think we were allowed to take many curtain calls. So,
right.
And then, of course, they had to cut it off because it was being televised. So they said, "Oh, we have to cut it off. Do not go back on stage." They stopped the audience from clapping. Yeah.
He looks very happy, very content. That was a beautiful performance by Jonathan Fournel.
Wonderful.
Queen looks very pleased. Wow, this ends that 6-day marathon. Everyone has played now. I always wonder, being last in some ways has its benefits and its, I don't know. I think there are more benefits actually, because now you don't have to wait that long before you get the results. That pain of waiting is minimized.
Yeah, I mean, there is the unfortunate human psychology of, we definitely remember things that happen more closely. And I think likewise, if you begin first, the bar gets set sometimes very high. And I've judged competitions now where the best person is first and you kind of think, wow, everyone else is just, really lackluster compared to this first person. So there is an advantage to being sort of at the bookends of the competition.
Exactly. I am picking up the statistics of the best days for a competition sequence. We have statistics right here. I just got a message. So far, there have been 9 winners that played on Saturday, and then 8 on Friday, 8 on Thursday, 6 on Wednesday, 4 on Tuesday, and 3 on the first day. So it just goes to show that, you have a big advantage playing near the end of it.
I would agree, yeah.
But we have Marin Alsop, who was previously conducting the finals of the Queen Elisabeth competition for many, many years, and actually was the conductor that was leading your final round. Hello, Marin Alsop. Very nice to have you back on here.
Good
Thank
evening.
you for making time. Good.
Nice
I
to
don't need
see
to
you
introduce to you each other because you guys played together.
Really good to see you. Yes.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. It was
This
such a
must bring
joy
back
to kind
memories, huh?
Absolutely, especially watching this video and also everything that we went through as competitors and just how supportive you were to each and every one of us. It was really, really beautiful to relive that just watching these videos now.
Well, it was a pleasure and a privilege, and what an exciting opportunity for all of us to participate in, and it's so exciting to at least vicariously be part of the finals tonight.
That's really, really wonderful. I just want to say, as a conductor, what do you think about in terms of this competition and how it fits in terms of, advocating for the next generation of musicians? And, is this sort of one of the reasons that you felt really connected to this competition? And I've noticed that this is a big part of your identity as well. So it'd be really lovely to hear a little bit about sort of what your experience was from your end being a part of the competition.
Oh, wait, let's applaud for you.
Applaud you.
Bravo, I think you're asking me right there, how did it go? And I was like, oh, it's done.
No, you're like, oh, it's over. Hallelujah.
After midnight.
I think yeah, really. I think from my perspective, I was never a big fan of the idea of a competition for artists. There's something about that goes a little bit against my philosophical grain. But that said, I can only speak for myself. You as competitors would know much better than I, but this feels the least like a competition of any big competition I've ever participated in. This feels more like um, a showcase opportunity. That everyone brings their own individual strengths to the table. My role, and in my opinion, was to support those strengths, try to bolster any weaknesses. I think with young artists, particularly if you're playing a Brahms concerto, something like that, which is so symphonic in nature, I can help with the crafting and shaping of the interpretation, the direction of the piece, those kinds of things. So me, it was really like many journeys, rather than this kind of competitive sense. And the years that I conducted, I never felt a rivalry among the contestants that was anything but healthy. It didn't feel destructive to me. And I also noticed many friendships, deep friendships being forged. And that to me was very beautiful. And of course, the aspect of the Queen Elizabeth competition that I love so much is the public support of it, that the people are there, they're interested, they're curious. Also, the support of the Queen and the royal family and all the leadership. That to me is also indicative, I think, of the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
But you
It is a very
could
nice
speak to it
national
more than I.
event.
I mean, those sort of behind the scenes. I'm sure there are little things here and there that happen, but I think generally I found all the young artists very supportive of each other.
I mean, just speaking from my own year, everyone was so supportive. I think you might recall that I hurt my hand, and about four
I
of
did.
my
I
colleagues,
remember that vividly.
and they just came and they were like, "Here's my arnica, here's my medication. Take this. Are you okay? Like, can I get you dinner?" I mean, it was just unbelievable, and everyone was just so supportive. And I think we were even playing the test piece to each other at the Chapelle, like, let's
Yeah.
coach each other. I mean, that's beautiful because at the end of the day, it's about making music and also having a camaraderie because these people are our colleagues for the rest of our lives, and we're presumably going to continue making music together. So you bring up a really beautiful point about sort of the finals and being at the Chapelle and so forth.
Yeah, it was
Absolutely.
for me. I definitely miss it every year, I have to say. So, but it's nice. It was lovely to see Hugh in the orchestra again. I've been back to guest conduct, but seeing them in that context again brings back wonderful memories for me.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was tuning in because I watched every single year of the competition. I remember Marin. Oh, I was hoping that, for the final round, I will also get to work with you. But of course, that was not possible because Hugh was there already.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But,
The things change, but you never know in the future.
Yeah. How many years did you do it for?
I don't remember exactly. Maybe 4 or 5. Something. Okay. Gosh, maybe even a few more than that. But yeah, I love doing it. I think that it's interesting because in this June, right now, as a matter of fact, I was scheduled to conduct the finals of the Van Cliburn competition, but of course that has now been postponed a year. So I will both head the jury, which I didn't have to do in the Queen Elizabeth, and that was a relief because from my perspective, I like to stay out of these things. But with Van Cliburn competition, I'll head the jury and conduct the finals. So that's going to be a very exciting event, and it'll be nice to see to compare the experiences, from culturally and in terms of the kind of camaraderie I can hopefully nurture while I'm there.
Well, thanks so much for
I have a
sharing
question
that.
because
Oh, sorry, go on. There's a bit of a delay. I
I just wanted
apologize.
to, yeah, no problem. My question is, because you're a violinist, did you find that working with violinists was easier or more challenging?
You know, I've always found, of course, the violin repertoire, because I played it all. You know, it's a little bit easier to know. I know non-violinist conductors who freak out at certain moments, you know, in the violin repertoire. But you know, I won't tell you where they are, but I know exactly. You know, they're always calling me, "Hey, what do you do here?" So it helps, I think. But I have to say that I've become really, really comfortable, particularly with the piano repertoire. I mean, it's so vast and there's so many notes and there's so much going on that it's really exciting and engaging for me. Not that the violin repertoire is not. That feels more like being at home to me, you know, the violin repertoire. But of course, it's always fascinating to work, particularly when we work on the obligatory piece repeatedly, you know, 12 times, or maybe it's just 6 times now. But to do a piece, the same piece, and a new piece that many times with that many different interpretations and viewpoints or lack of viewpoints, you know, it really depends how far people got in their process. That was really, really, really eye-opening to me.
Marin, I wanted to
Yeah, that's
ask,
really, really interesting.
mention, and one previous thing that you mentioned about sort of judging and taking on the role of judging, I just wanted to add something that I think is really interesting, is that you have a very special viewpoint of working with the contestants. So in the Clyburn, presumably you'll be conducting and working with them, and that sort of, you know, you have sort of an opportunity to see how they work as professionals, the musical decisions that are made, and not just sort of what the typical setter jury might see sort of just on that final showcase. So you really get that behind the scenes. And so in some ways, I feel like I think it was really interesting to hear you talk a little bit about that, and to learn that you will be a part of that process, because ultimately, as soloists, you know, we will be evaluated and continue to build relationships with conductors and work with them. So
That's a very good point. In that it's sort of, I have a viewpoint and a vantage point of being able to observe the potential of the whole artist, probably, and I think that's great. I also try very hard. I mean, I don't know whether any of these kinds of experiences can really be objective. You know, we're always are victims of our own subjectivity. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, really. But I try, when I've been on juries, to really keep an open mind, because, you know, you go into the first round, you say, yeah, definitely, he's going to win, no doubt. And then the next day you say, oh, well, now wait a minute, maybe she. And so I think it's very important when you get young artists at this high level to allow them the latitude to really be something that you don't expect. It's so important not to judge too soon. And I've watched many, many young artists dramatically change in the course of a 4-day competition, 5 days, you know, really almost entirely evolve. So I think that that's something I really will try to bring to the table as well. But it'll be nice to be able to give some insight into the working process with each of the artists.
I think that was a really lovely theme that just came up. You know, earlier in the conversation this evening, Timmy and I were talking about sort of just what it means to be a performer and how one feels if you're swayed as a juror or as a performer by what sort of has happened throughout the day, who's directly before you, who's directly after you, what you've eaten for lunch, you know, if you have, you know, what. So I think it's really nice to hear this idea of this sort of open mind and just a great deal of sensitivity and understanding that comes from, the other direction, knowing that as performers that, we can also be very gentle and receptive to our fellow musicians, as well as,
Yes.
being a member of the audience, sort of having that openness of interpretation. Oh, I think that was interesting. Like, let me hear that again and see if I can hear it at that tempo or whatever it might be. So I think that was really interesting as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I've also
definitely.
noticed that sometimes. I'll keep going, Marin.
No. Go ahead.
I was just gonna.
There's a little bit of a delay, so it's a little awkward. You go.
Okay, so I was just saying that I've also noticed that it's sometimes that, you have a really, really good set of rehearsals, and then on stage, it almost flops a little bit. And yet I've seen other people, including myself, on both sides, where the rehearsals were so frustrating and nothing was working out. And yet the performance, everything just suddenly synced. I don't know if that's a psychological push. It's like maybe the rehearsals went too well. You're like, oh, it's going to be super well. You become overconfident, and then it flops. Or the opposite. Yeah. I've realized that myself. Have you both realized that or experienced that before as well?
Of course, both ways. Don't you think? I mean, it goes every which way. I think for sure. You really never know what's going to happen with live music. That's what's so incredibly beautiful, and yeah, you just absolutely never know. You can't predict. But again, everyone's at such a high level and has worked so hard, and laid the groundwork so that the level never really drops below, I think, excellent. And that is very, very exciting. But the thing to really try to remember as a candidate is that you've arrived at that high level. To be among the top 12 or top 6 is unquestionably a huge achievement unto itself. And that there's room for everyone in this field, and there's a place for everyone. So if you don't win, and the likelihood is that you won't win,
right?
There's still great pride to take away from being in a competition like this.
And I love that too. I mean, one thing that now that I'm sort of crossed to the other side and I teach my own students, I always remind them that there are so many ways of winning. You don't have to win first prize to win. You don't have to take home monetary awards to win. Sort of what you mentioned before, Marin, about sort of the relationships you build and, the people that you meet along the way and the experience that you get from putting on a showcase. This is truly winning. So if you have this kind of mindset of going to a competition, you don't put that pressure on yourself of, oh, I need this. I need this 1 or 2 or 3. And at some point it becomes incredibly arbitrary. But one thing I wanted to add was that, when we worked with you, one thing that really stood out from having done other competitions before and working with a number of conductors in the finals is just your great deal of empathy, that sort of really wanting and rooting for every person to do their very best really came through very strongly. And I think that, well, I just want to say that has to have something to do with, who you are as a person, your artistic sort of background, but sort of, I don't know if you'd be willing to share with us a little bit about sort of your own journey, what it was like to be an artist and sort of growing up to be a conductor as a woman also, where it was clearly,
I think that, thank you for your kind words. I do think that it's interesting because there's a documentary film about me that's being premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival in a couple of weeks in New York. And it's really more about mentorship, I think, than anything else. And that to me is a great privilege that we all have, even as young artists, to be able to give back and to mentor. And I think perhaps that was something that I could have used more of, let's say, coming into the field, the conducting field. But I've tried to at least change that paradigm for the future by creating a fellowship for women conductors and by trying to teach young artists, work with young artists, start programs for kids who don't have access to music, these are all things that I think are just part of what I believe in. And I believe that art, and this is a part of why I love the competition, I believe that art should be accessible to everyone and inclusive. And something like this competition, which is televised, so everyone can watch it in their home whenever they want, this is really an important resource for everyone. And I know people not just in Belgium and not just in Europe, but people worldwide follow the competition and really get a lot out of it. So so it was a real privilege to be part of it, and I send my best wishes to everyone there. And are you staying on for the duration here?
We're staying all the way to the end. Yeah, we're going to be staying on. We do have a question.
Yeah.
We have one question in specific from the chat. UP Zuzu is asking at Marin, if you had to choose one of your many discs behind you that you recorded, which one is it going to be and why?
I don't think any of these are mine, probably in the shelves here. But as far as the things that I've recorded, I would say, I haven't counted them, but it's probably close to 100 CDs by now. And I think that, it's so hard to just select one, but I love the Brahms cycle that I recorded with the London Philharmonic, and Brahms in particular really speaks to me. And of course, Brahms figures so prominently always in the Queen Elizabeth competition. Why every young pianist wants to play Brahms, I mean, I know why, but it's so challenging, yet they do, whether it's pianists or violinists, it's the Brahms is it, but I totally understand why.
It's incredible. I have this one last question before we let you go that I get asked a lot, and it's just been in the chats as well. How do you find time to balance your professional career with your personal life?
Yeah, I think that, that's probably a question that everyone has. And it's a very individual journey to find, I would say the solution, I think, to struggle to try to find the balance. There have been times in my life where there has been no balance whatsoever. And there have been times when I've struck the right balance for me. But, it's such an individual thing. I'm driven by working. I love what I do. So it doesn't feel as though it's a burden. But I think my family knows that they are always my priority. And I've tried always to make it clear that if they need me, I just drop everything. There's no question, that they are my priority. And during this, I think probably all of us have had some revelations during this pandemic, about balance, life-work balance, and what's important. And I think we probably all come out with realizing that relationships and profound relationships are probably the most important thing in life. And, there can be profound relationship with your instrument, but you have to have it balanced with that humanity.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Beautiful.
I mean, that's something that I think a lot of my colleagues and myself are trying to find how to best navigate that. And definitely during the pandemic, it's come to realize that you need both, but you also need to know you need both. You can't just have one. You can't focus on your career without having anything. You can't have that and nothing to look forward to as well. It's a really fine balance, and it's a different formula for everyone.
True. Absolutely true. Yeah. You're absolutely right. But I urge, everybody, there's no designated way to do it. There's no formula. Everyone has to find their own way, and again, try not to judge others, just try to learn from them. I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that. And, but early in one's career, there are a lot of sacrifices that you have to make. As you know, the hours you have to put in are formidable.
Exactly.
And it's not for everybody, and that's okay too.
Absolutely.
But the two of you have certainly put in the hours, and I'm a big admirer.
Well, thank you so much, Marin, for coming on with us today. And Marin, Benny2561 is just saying also on behalf of all of us, I think, thank you for speaking from your heart and your profound wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's
Lovely
so good
to see you.
again.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank
Bye.
you. We're going to wish everyone luck.
That's right.
Everybody.
Toi.
Everyone's a winner.
Oh, what a beautiful.
I love that. That's so great.
Amount of wisdom. Yeah. It's so nice to, I mean, I've never met her. I've seen her all over the Belgian television and all that. And I saw, everybody in the past Laureate, most of them have played with her at some point. But we have Jonathan here. Bravo. Félicitations.
Oh, it's very nice. Thank you.
How do you feel, first of all?
Oh, for now, I feel better because I was kind of anxious for the last month, so it was time for it to be done, I guess. I mean, almost done because now we're still waiting for the results. So, but it feels better, yeah.
Congratulations! It was such a convincing performance. Yes.
Thank you.
And David was helping.
Yeah. No, it was such a joy to hear. Just an incredibly musical and beautiful interpretation where every note, had life and soul. So incredibly beautiful.
Thank you very much. It was very nice. Timothy, I think I was in the same room as you in chapel because I signed the piano, and on the pianos I was just signing signature.
Yeah, isn't that cool? That's awesome. I love that room. I love that room so much. Yeah. No, that's a great room. Oh, cool okay. Room. So my DNA is there. Your DNA is there.
I don't want to know what that even means, Timmy.
You don't need to know.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that could go so many ways. But we have a question for you, Jonathan. What was it like playing without an audience? Was it more difficult? I mean, you had the jury, of course, but we all know that's not like the same as having a real public on it. Was it more difficult? Did you find it didn't really matter to you, or was it easier?
Actually, I think for me it was more complicated to play without an audience. Even if you are kind of getting used to it for like 1 or 2 years now, because most of the concerts are organized online or like through live concerts and things without any audience. But it's never as comfortable as with the audience. I feel like with the audience you have something like a power or like a spirit or something that brings you to to find more imagination or something. I don't know, I cannot explain, but I'm really looking forward for the audience to come back in the halls now. I think we really need it.
I think so too.
Yeah, I really agree with you in terms of like when you play to an empty hall, the audience also has to give you an energy, right? So like you feel if the eyes are on you, if they get very quiet, you know you're doing something right. But when you're playing to an empty hall, I can imagine you don't get that energy that you mentioned. So it's true. Yeah.
Or like someone is yawning in the middle of, you're like, oh, maybe it's boring or anything, but like you realize what the people are actually feeling. I don't know, it's difficult.
Exactly, right.
But or someone coughing, totally kind of miss people coughing in the hall,
or moving and then not moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we complain about that so much because every YouTube comment that goes out there, like, oh, why do people cough so much all the time? But we actually kind of miss it. It's like, please cough now.
Please come back and upload between the movements, please.
Yes, yeah. Same. But Jonathan, you've been at the Chapelle for 5 years now. So was it really foreign to go back into almost quarantine without your cell phone during this entire competition? Did you feel familiar, or did it still feel very foreign to you?
It didn't feel so weird at the beginning, because it's a building that I know very well, with people that I know. I couldn't see them, but people that I know. At the beginning, for the first few days, it was more than fine. After, like maybe the three last day, I was really looking forward to see the people I miss, and maybe to see the others that are staying in chapel, but I cannot see. I cannot say that I miss my phone now. It's like I got used to it. But even when I was practicing, sometimes I'm practicing and I have the phone on the stand, and I'm like in the middle of a piece, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a break, so I do the gesture to take my phone. Oh, but I realize, oh, but there is no phone. Okay, so maybe I should continue to practice. It was a bit special because of that. But I brought books, but I didn't even finish them because, I mean, when you have time, I mean, that as much as me now, when you have time, you're like, should I practice or should I just do nothing? That's
Yeah. I mean, and actually,
or like
the
going
time
and walk.
goes so quickly, right? I mean,
It
the
goes
time at the
quickly.
Chapelle, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even if like the last 2 days you want to play, like the last 2-3 days you're like, oh, please.
Right. Oh wow. We do have a question from the audience right now on Twitch. They're asking, have you always studied in France? Have you always been in France to get your education in being an artist?
No, I've been studying in Germany as well for 4 years, between 11 and 15. I was studying with Robert Leonardi and Jean Miko in Hochschule in Saarbrücken. Because I am born in the east of France, and then for us it was also quite easier and even shorter to drive to Germany than going to Metz or Strasbourg, the big conservatoire in France. And after my teacher from there said, well, as a French, it's maybe good for you to have a diploma from a French conservatoire, like Paris Conservatoire. So after I went to Paris when I was 15.
Okay. Yeah, and then one last question that we had from the audience from Silla Balcarli. Do you have any specific exercises for the left hand?
Oula.
That's an odd question.
It depends for what. It depends for what. I don't know. What I'm always thinking is that trying to never be tense and just feeling the weight of the arm on the hands and never trying to be tense on the head. But it really depends for what. Octaves or scales or whatever. I'm kind of very bad to explain this type of things. I'm sorry.
Okay, I know it's a little bit of a broad question, but we just want to say thank you so much, Jonathan, for your incredible performance. It was really spellbinding, and
Really.
good luck. You're lucky
Thank
that you
you.
don't have to wait too long, at least before the results come out. Can you imagine
That's a
being the
good
first
thing.
one to play? So, bon chance, and we'll see you very soon.
Merci. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a little video just to refresh everybody of the 6 finalists. And then we're going to have another guest join with us, a manager from Keynote Artists, to talk a little bit about what it's like to be on the business side and helping manage the careers of these artists who may go beyond the competition. So let's do a little video of the 6 finalists first, and then we'll get into our next guest.
Great.
Sorry, I was muted. I was just paying so much attention to. I was just saying I really don't envy any of them right now. They are such incredible artists, and to have to unfortunately go through an actual ranking. I mean, it's torturous at this point, but that's how a competition is. So. For those who are watching, I mean, I would love to know what your personal rankings are. Put them in the chat, and it's kind of like we'll see what comes out. And you just really don't know what the jury is listening to sometimes. But yeah, they're all winners in my book. All right, so we have our next guest on now, Daniel Rainey, manager of Keynote Artists, and I think we're just waiting for him to join us now, but let me just give a little background. He's actually my manager. We just started working during the pandemic. He's from Keynote Artists, has a representation of many great artists around there. Daniel, welcome. Where are you calling us from?
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you, God.
Nice to see you too. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the west coast of Scotland.
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
I've always wanted to go there.
One day when you're
is that a Scottish accent, or is that just where are you from in the UK?
I am from the west of Scotland, but it's quite a mild accent for where I'm from. So yeah, I get that a lot.
Oi. Very cool.
It's really, really cool. So Daniel, can you just introduce a little bit about what you do, who you are, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am an artist manager at Keynote Artist Management based in the UK. I've been working there for just over four years now. And we're a boutique agency, so on the smaller side in terms of the number of artists on our roster. And we look after a selection of conductors, instrumentalists, some singers, and as well as some directors as well. And it's a really exciting and rewarding job, and I get to work with some really wonderful colleagues and some fantastic musicians, including Mr. Timothy here. So it's a great job. I'm very, very lucky.
That's awesome. I mean, working with Daniel has been incredible so far. You're such a violin geek. I mean, so am I. It's incredible because you're a violinist. You're a violinist as well.
I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I was a violinist in my youth. Not in sort of Timmy's league at all, but but it is it's very useful for our chats and our geek sessions. It's great.
I mean, you've been following these competitions. I know Keynote also has a collaboration with the Van Cliburn, and I'm just wondering from your you watch, and I know we've talked about this, you watch all these competitions, Indianapolis, Hanover, all of the, Queen Elizabeth. I think we have a common question out here from everybody. It's like, what do you look for in the competition process? Do you look for the winner? Do you look for, just help guide us through. What does competitions mean to an artist manager?
Right. It's actually really interesting having just been listening to Marin, because we actually work with Yekwon Sunwoo, who was conducted by Marin at the last collaborative competition and the last winner. I think that, competitions are a very, very powerful tool and can be a real platform for an artist to sort of jump off from and lead into a sort of more full-scale, long-term solo career. I think that the landscape in which they live now, in terms of the music world as a whole, is a little bit different. I think particularly with the sort of proliferation of social media and the internet, I think the way that people consume music now is, of course, very different. Hello, we're all here on on Twitch at the moment, so it's a very different world. So I think competitions, they do still have a value, though, in my mind, and particularly, I always think, again, going back to what Marin was saying about it's not just about the prize winners, the first prize winner, or all of the laureates, but I think just it's that sounds cliche, but it's the taking part that counts. But it really is, because particularly with a competition, Van Cliburn at Queen Elizabeth, these are very mature competitions, and I think the level of repertoire that's required your a couple of recital programs, 2 or 3 concertos, contemporary works. That's often sometimes more than what some artists might play in their entire season, and to have all of that repertoire sort of under your fingers and at your disposal, ready to play at top level, and within the space of 5 days. I mean, that's an incredible feat in itself, and so I think one should never come to a competition thinking that one has to win. I think that there are so many other benefits to be gained. As far as what we would look for in terms of an artist that we would like to work with, it varies greatly from person to person, but I think I can speak for myself and my colleagues that the artists that we're most drawn to usually are, of course, we very much love their playing, we respect their artistry, but also artists that are looking to, I think, find their own path and follow what is sort of right for them, rather than feeling like they have to fulfill preconceived or kind of cookie cutter sort of what a career should be. So someone that is ready to say yes to what they want, but also willing to say no to what they don't want. And I think that's very important for young artists as well, that particularly those that are on the hunt for management or for representation, is that you are the client. You are the client, and I think sometimes artists get a little bit, scared of scary managers, and but we always say to any prospective artist that we get in touch with or in speaking to, that it is a two-way relationship, and of course we have to feel that the artists we work with are artists that we feel we can make a difference for, but that has to be mutual. The artists themselves has to feel that we're the right fit for them. So it's very much a two-way street in that sense.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, that just gives us a whole rundown of, your perspective as an artist manager. And we have so many people don't understand the role of an artist manager to an artist, right?
Right.
I mean, can you help guide us? You're our Sherpa for today. How, I mean, what exactly does an artist manager do for artists? And of course I know what it does, but many of us don't understand. What is an artist manager?
Yeah.
Are you like this magic wand, or is it really artist led still, and it's a collaboration?
I wish, Timmy. I wish I was a magic wand. No, there are many different styles of management, but the way we look at it really is that our job is to basically take care of all of the things behind the scenes as much as possible, to allow the artist to be free enough to focus on what really matters to them and to be able to give out their best on stage. There is a whole lot of things that go into making an artist's career, beyond just, of course, the most important thing, which is the actual music making itself. But all of the planning side of things, all of the logistical side of things, the financial side of things, all of these require a lot of time and effort and labor, really. And our job is to sort of try and take that away, that stress away as much as possible from the artist, and really act on their behalf in their best interest, so that they can, as I say, concentrate on what matters most to them, which is, of course, practicing, performing, and making sure that they're where they need to be to deliver the engagements that they're booked to play.
Absolutely. And I do find that just from our collaborations and also working with other management, it's so much of a it takes two to make something, really, two to tango, basically. I think oftentimes we're given this, right? We're often given this image absolutely. That, basically once you're picked up by management, everything works out. I don't know. Did that ever happen? Maybe at one point when there was, I don't know.
I think it's a very short-sighted view to take. The reality is that, particularly I think with younger artists, is often when managers can be most helpful, and using something like, for example, a competition win or a Laureates, for example, is using that as a springboard to open doors. But once an artist goes through that door, there's very little that we can do after that. It's really up to the artist then, and that presenter will decide very quickly whether they want to reinvite that artist again or not. And sometimes as I was saying earlier, sometimes it's almost a question. Is I think particularly with younger artists, because it's a very quite a tumultuous time. I mean, especially now given where we are in the world, but it can be a very difficult time because a young artist is very, very keen, of course, to get out there and to get playing and to really get out there on the scene. But one has to be careful not to be overwhelmed by accepting too many concerts and sort of stretching yourself too thin. So sometimes it can really be a question of saying no to some things because, you know, it's just not quite the right time to open that door just yet.
I mean, I have a question for Daniel as well. I mean, sort of, you touched on the idea of how the landscape of, you know, music and the way concerts are happening, it's really changing now. And, you know, I have conversation with sort of like legendary managers. You know, I think about one of my mentors at Landau, who said it was just really different 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And, you know, you could get an artist and they would do the circuit. But now you have lots of different kinds of concerts. You have really tried and true institutions that have existed forever, the BSO or, you know, the Chicago, New York Phil, you know, and then you have now all these other smaller presenters, but they're doing really interesting things, as you mentioned, feeding into maybe the specific interests of artists. So I don't know if you can speak to what you're thinking about as an agent, sort of navigating this ever-changing kind of industry.
Yeah, it's a big question. I think for me, I think there will always be a place for the traditional concert. I don't think that will ever sort of die, so to speak. But I think that some of the things happening around it will definitely and can definitely evolve in a really positive way. And also, I think especially now we're really focused on diversity in what we do, and really I think across the board, the artists that are on stage and also the music that we're playing, making sure that we, of course, as I say, there will always be a place for the traditionals, you know, our good old Brahms, as we were just been listening to. But we need to make room for lesser known composers, for female composers, for composers of color, all of those great things. And I think that I was listening to an interview recently with some sort of audience members, and it brought up a point that I hadn't really considered, which is, you know, live streams, of course, have been running all throughout the pandemic. And people are very keen for live concerts to come back, of course. I mean, nothing can replace a live concert. But in many ways, I do hope that some presenters will keep live streaming concerts online because, you know, the amount of people perhaps in developing countries where, you know, they might just about have the internet, but they don't necessarily have a local concert hall. And making music more accessible in that way, I think, is a really, really positive thing. And yeah, I think it's again, as I was saying earlier about artists trying to find their own path. I think we're always very keen and interested in artists that are willing to try new things. Of course, they have their tried and tested, you know, programs and recitals and concertos and concerts that they like to do, but they're willing to try things that are a little bit off the beaten path. And I think that's for any artist moving forward. That's very important to be willing to experiment and be willing to try and be willing to push yourself. And because, as you say, rightly so, that this, you know, it's a ever changing world that we're in, so we have to try and keep up.
Well, thank you so much for your insights, Daniel. Really appreciate you coming on to the show, and I'll talk to you very soon. I mean, everyone, please look up Daniel. He is on Instagram now, if I may share that. He's check out the Keynote website. Keynote, they're just signing some great artists recently. Gemma New, I just saw, just joined your roster, and Christian Reif as well. Helen Climo is on there as well. So really exciting. And thank you so much, Daniel, for giving your insight and your time. We're going to move on now to bloopers of the previous competitions. You know, we all love that part, right? So why don't we just roll the tape and we're going to go over them together. Daniel, let's comment on these bloopers. Let's see if anybody remembers. There's some pretty painful ones, but I'm sure you guys are all recognize. There's Tobias. Ooh. He broke a string, taking the concertmaster. What a classic.
Voilà, Tobias Feldman.
I feel like there are a couple of videos of like, wasn't there famous ones of Midori when she
Yes.
broke her string with Bernstein, right? Twice.
Exactly.
Like a minute.
Exactly.
Oh,
This is.
just takes it in stride. Look at him.
I know. I've done this before in a concert, but never in a competition.
Ah.
Oh, here's the second clip.
Queen Elisabeth, die zo.
Oops. He meant to say Queen Fabiola, not Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, she's so fabulous. She's clapping too.
Oh my goodness.
I love it. Just love it.
Queen Elizabeth International Grand Prize.
Oh gosh.
Queen Elizabeth, Fabiola Prize.
He said Queen Elizabeth again.
Elle est omniprésente, comme vous le savez.
Oh, we saw this the other day when Christine was just about to have a big accident. She broke her string. That's incredible. She broke her C string. Who breaks a C string on
Wow.
a cello?
I love her face. She was like, what?
Oopsie daisies.
Broke two strings. Did she break two strings?
Yeah.
See,
Oh my
Angie.
goodness. This is the worst one. Oh no. I think this one she became famous overnight for the wrong reasons. Oh no.
Right. I remember this.
Ooh, this is hard to watch.
Yeah. The names are similar, and they, I think, mispronounced one of the names, and the wrong competitor came on stage. And both
my
incredible
goodness.
musicians, and very, very
They
sad,
are.
very hard to watch.
Oh, this is hard.
The stakes are so high.
And this is just this is the last competition where the light just flickered off.
I did not know this. My goodness.
Yeah, she was the last competitor, I think. Shannon Lee.
Wow.
Luckily, this year nothing happened.
And the orchestral musicians were looking at each other like, what's going on?
Luckily, it's Tchaikovsky. Everybody knows this piece in the orchestral part. Bravo, Shannon.
Comme si de rien n'était quand les lumières se sont quasiment complètement éteintes dans la
Oh,
salle.
that's hilarious.
Oui, ben, on est toujours évidemment un peu sous le choc et
Wow, this is really fun for me to watch. I had no idea a lot of this stuff happened.
Did any of that happen in your year?
No, I don't think anything unusual happened. It was pretty smooth sailing. They run a really tight
Okay,
ship at the
nothing-
Queen Elizabeth, so
Yeah, nothing too dramatic. Well, I know that we have our guest ready now, Barbara, who is part of the communication staff of the competition. Good evening, Barbara. How are you doing? Where are you? Are you in the Beaux-Arts Center right now? Barbara? Where are you, Barbara?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Barbara.
Okay.
Ah,
Hello,
there you are.
Barbara.
Hi, good evening. From
Hi,
Brussels.
good
You
to
are
see you
Barbara
again.
right now.
Yes, yeah, I'm in the concert hall.
What's the energy like right now?
Empty. Yes. The hall. No.
Empty.
But the energy, yeah, it's still quite stressful, I think. We are really anxious to know how the jury will have voted tonight. Even though there were only 6 finalists, the nerves were the same. Voila. So that didn't change. But of course, it was a very different edition this year.
Absolutely. I don't think everybody realizes, but there are so many moving parts in making sure that this competition runs smoothly. And you're one of those people that we don't get to see very often. So do you want to introduce yourself and what part of the competition do you play in making this a very smooth experience for everybody?
So I'm working mainly on the competition website, which had quite a main role this year, since last year especially, because because the beginning of the Corona crisis, we didn't have any people in the hall, no contact with other people. It was really important for us to have a good communication means with the website. Of course, social media were very important for us this year. This is my colleague Valeria, who takes care of that, and together we had like a crazy year. I think it was crazy for everybody at the team, but for us, I think it was especially important to be able to have everything out there to the people. You know, everybody who's watching, even if it's in Belgium, the people who are normally in the concert hall, or everybody who is always watching from abroad.
Absolutely. We saw the transformation of your website and just your communication on social media. That is a huge job, and I commend Valerie for making that direction. It's incredible. So we know that next year is going to be the cello competition. Have you guys started planning for that already?
Yes, of course, this year we didn't do very much for the cello competition, but some things were already planned, of course, and the concert hall, the orchestras, the jury members, those kind of things were already planned. The rules were, because everything was fixed for this year, in fact. Normally 2021 was going to be the cello competition. So we have moved all the competitions for 1 year, and all the candidates can have now 1 year more. So the age limit for 4 years has been raised by 1 year. So that's what we already prepared, and then after our summer break, we will start putting up the application form, which is also only online since a few years. So, I think David still had to send a DVD probably in his time.
That's
I don't know,
right.
2013 was a DVD still,
2013
I think, yes.
was DVDs.
Yeah,
You've just given away my age, Barbara.
Oh, sorry, but you can find out all of this on our good website. So.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Speaking of applications, Barbara, I don't think people realize we only saw 6 finalists this year, but how many people actually put in an application to enter this competition?
Yeah, there were 331 to be exact, and so that's were a lot of candidates. I think for the piano we always have the most candidates. So this year we put in a system that was a kind of a pre-selection, and then there was the pre-selection on basis of videos still, and then there were the 74 candidates who were selected initially, and of those there were even 58 who decided to come this year. We were really super amazed and pleasantly surprised that so many of them really wanted to come despite all the difficulties they had this year.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this has been really a unique year, and hopefully this will be the last of this type of situation. But I mean, I'm wondering, because of having to adapt with what's going on with the world, with COVID, do you think that there would be any structural changes to the competition that will continue going into the future?
I don't think so. If we can, we will surely just do it like we always did it. So we had to cut in the semi-final. We only had 12 semi-finalists instead of 24 because we had a limited time in the concert hall. So we couldn't have so much of candidates during the semi-final week, and then also for the final week only 6. So we hope that things can get back to normal, perhaps next year already. I hope so.
Yeah. Maybe we'll keep this Twitch stream still alive. I hope so. That would be amazing.
Yeah. That would be great. And thank you, Timothy, and hi from the whole team also. And we're really glad to see you do this. You are a natural talent.
Thank you. If y'all want this Twitch stream to stay, comment below so I know that you guys are supporting me. Otherwise, it's a complete flop. But okay, so thank you so much, Barbara, for your time. I know it's very busy, so I'll let you continue on with your work. Thank you for all, everything you do to make this into a smooth experience. Thank you. Okay, so we have a media footage now to share to sum up the 6 finalists, and then we're going to have Hugh Wolf, the conductor of the competition final round, join us for a short interview as well. So let's play that clip. All right, so we have Huel Wolf joining us now, and for those who are just joining in, we're at the final stages of choosing and ranking the finalists for the prize announcement. Feel free to put in your own personal rankings in the chat below. Hugh, very nice to see you again. How are you doing?
I've seen you in 2 years. How are you?
I know, it's crazy. I'm doing well. It was so nice to see you back in your post and everything, but with a mask this time. How did it feel to have a year missing and then doing this all over again?
Yeah, it was. I would say it was. It was more like you're taking a test at school, not like you're giving a concert. No audience and not a whole lot of energy to feed off of for the candidates. Very different from when you were out there.
Absolutely. When we were doing it back in 2019, you could really just feel the wave of energy that just electrified everyone, no matter what night you played on. That was such an integral part of making this competition successful. But did you find that, and also, I mean, when you're wearing masks, I know we had to do that for health reasons, but I remember looking at your face for timing cues and for color changes as well. Did you find that you had to use an alternate way of communicating those gestures to the contestants this year?
I don't know. I think we've all gotten used to masks, and we read each other's eyes and eyebrows a lot better than we ever did before. But you'd have to ask the candidates, because I mean, I wore the mask for the whole thing, but they were free to take them off.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a question.
Yeah, David,
go on. I was just going to say, as a conductor, what you do is really athletic. So in some ways, does having the mask get in the way of sort of the physicality of what you do? Is it hard to catch breath, or is it hard for me to walk up a flight of stairs? It's hard.
I've gotten used to it. I think the first time I did it, I was gasping for breath. I mean, it was really kind of like inhibiting your oxygen. But now it seems like, I don't know, I'm used to it now, and I guess we all just adapt. And we've certainly been adapting a lot in the last year. And I think we've done it pretty well. And I think for the orchestra to have come through like this in this situation was really nice. I was proud of them.
Yeah, everybody gave such a unique performance over the past 6 days, and I commend them with the ability. I personally think it's harder actually not to have an audience, because you really feel like you're playing for the jury, because that's the only audience out there, and you're like, every one of them is someone that knows exactly what you're listening to. So for me, that's like a nightmare. I don't envy any of them right now. And
I mean, that's why I said it's like taking a test at school. Giving a jury. It's like giving a jury at school.
Were you already in Belgium, or did you fly from Boston in quarantine for a couple of days before you did the final round?
I've come and gone, I guess, 4 times since January. I had to quarantine 3 times, but now I've been kind of exempted from quarantine, so I can come and go a little more as I please. But I've been here for 2.5 weeks preparing for this.
What are the differences right now in terms of music making, sort of across the pond, on that side of the world, in Europe, in continental Europe, and then here in the States in these few months?
It's pretty similar. I mean, we're still anticipating our first live audience since the fall. I guess here they had live audiences, I think, as late as November. And then they kind of shut down again. And we're going to have a live audience 2 weeks from yesterday, when we're back in this hall playing Mahler 4. We're going to have 200 people allowed in. And that's starting to happen in the States as well. So there's this sense now that, adjustments are being made, and you can look forward to some audience, maybe 20%, and then in a month, maybe 40%. And I'm kind of hopeful that by September, when the season starts, we'll be pretty much at capacity. But I think that all depends on how well it goes over the next 2 months. If it surges back up, everything's off the table again.
Absolutely.
Really
We're all
exciting.
praying and wishing that it's all going to work out, because I think we were supposed to start last season together, but that obviously was compromised, right? What a shame.
Now we're what? I think it's like a year from now, Timothy, right? I think it's now a year from now that we're, and by then, fingers crossed, by then we'll have a full house cheering for you. Yeah.
That'll be nice. If things don't go back by a year from now, I think worse things are gonna happen at that point. But I'm
very
confident.
painful.
Yeah,
It'll be a very painful 3 years at that point. But yeah, it's really awesome to see you on stage again. I remember actually, backstage, you were so calm and collective. And I remember I so appreciate you coming up to me and just being like, let's just start the opening one more time. You're making sure you had the right tempo with me because you're playing this with 12 different finalists and you never want to go on autopilot. What is your approach in making sure that every single contestant gets a unique formula and attention almost?
It's sticky notes. I put sticky notes. I put sticky notes in the score after each candidate, and then I have to put where I put them, and I have to put the candidate's name on them so that I know how to put them back for the performance. But each candidate has like 3 or 4 little sticky notes to remind me what tempo they prefer, or where they might take a little time, and so forth. Works pretty well.
That's amazing because I remember. Yeah, I mean, I remember that, and you had a separate score for every single contestant as well, right? You never use the same score. I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't know if that's a common practice or is that you that made that for yourself?
Well, it was the librarian here who suggested it, and it was the best suggestion I've ever had because it really, really made a difference. And I remember with, I think, 4 of you playing Tchaikovsky, at least 4 of you playing Tchaikovsky, 4 different scores, and each score was marked exactly the way you'd done it in rehearsal, and that was so helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember last edition when Shannon was playing the final round, the lights just went off.
Remember that? Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, we kept playing.
Insane.
Yeah, it was kind of in a tete. We kept playing, and it was like, if it had gone on for another 10 seconds, I think we would have had to have stopped. But probably 15 seconds without lights, and yeah, that was great.
So what does your summer look like? What's the next project that you have, and where can we all catch you next?
Well, like I said, I'm back here for Mahler in 2 weeks. Then some more concerts here. This orchestra will play in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam. And then I'm at the Aspen Music Festival, and Aspen in Colorado is going to be kind of a almost festival. I think it's going to be way restricted, a little bit like this was, but I think there'll be some public. And who knows? Everybody's just hoping and wondering and fingers crossed and assuming that if we behave reasonably, it'll pay off by September.
Absolutely. And you're someone that has a really great career in both sides of the ocean. And I think that is something that I think a lot of the audience members don't realize, that there is, at least for soloists, there is a big difference between how the two are viewed in terms of how things work, the orchestra booking system and all of that. How did you find a balance, and what are the differences between working in North America as opposed to Europe?
Yeah, you're right. It's a pretty big difference. In Europe, this music is a little more central to the culture, particularly in Germany and Austria and the UK and France, Belgium. There you find that things are planned maybe a little more in advance. In the States, things are always a little more tenuous, I think, just the financing of orchestras. I think what the orchestras have gone through in the States with COVID is more existential and more threatening than orchestras that here are supported by the government. So yeah, I think it's could be tricky knowing how we're going to come out of this. I think in North America it'll be a bigger struggle.
Yeah, I can't imagine also just, I mean, that's so true because North America is a much more privatized system. Right. I mean, Canada's kind of in between, but definitely in the US, it's almost completely private. And I think, having experience of both, it gives you some pros and cons, of course. But as of right now, because COVID, definitely, I think the government system really helps out with the longevity of these orchestras. And I can't imagine for you to go back and forth between North America and Europe on a consistent basis. Do you ever feel like dazed? Because I did that a little bit after, pre-COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I probably make
alive.
Yeah, I probably make like 10 round trips across the Atlantic every year. So yeah, it's a lot of flying, but you make adjustments, and I've learned to cope over the years. Somehow it's always worth it, because when you get there and you get thrown into the working situation, kind of the excitement and the adrenaline, as you well know, take over and make up for travel issues and loss of sleep.
Yeah. Favorite airline?
Oh, don't get me started.
You must be a master. I mean, every musician that travels,
Like
they're
the
like,
worst airline?
Delta, no, United, no, Lufthansa, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I feel for them too, because their lives are all messed up too. But it's pretty hard right now, and you know, nobody has great airline experiences. I think it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, David and Hugh, have you both worked together in the past before?
No, this is the first time. I mean, I've seen your work, but this is the first time I've met you. So very nice to be able to chat.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, I went to school with your son.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember that day. That last day, I remember it was May 24th. That was the day we were supposed to graduate. And I remember when I first saw you backstage, you're like, "Wait, aren't you supposed to be at graduation right now with my son?"
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'd forgotten about that. That's funny.
Yeah. No, me and David, we've never. We actually connected quite a few days ago, but we had a lot of things to talk about. But this is the first time we're actually collaborating, and hopefully more in the future as well. So
cool. Yeah, it's very cool.
Very great collaborations. Hugh, I want to say a big thank you for joining us tonight on Twitch.
My
and
pleasure.
Really enjoyed watching you over the past 6 days. Take some rest and relax.
Bravo. Yeah.
Looking forward to working with you next season.
Indeed. Me too. Thanks, Timothy.
It's always so nice to talk to the conductor.
Yeah, it must be a marathon too. I mean, you have to do it every single day. I mean, and with all this different music and different interpretations, it must be energy sucking. But you know, it's also really fun to give back. I think, from what I'm hearing from both Marin and you.
Exactly, and you got to realize it's like, yeah, it is. I mean, non-COVID times, it's 12 competitors. It's not just 12 performances. It's 12 plus 2 rehearsals for each competitor. That's 12, 24, 36 runs, within a week. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
And the way that it's scheduled, it's just so back to back, and it's just like one after the other. I remember that. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
For the orchestra too, I mean, it's really crazy.
Yeah. I know that they usually have 2 sets of orchestras. We have 2 different concertmasters, but I think this year, because it's only 6, it looked like everybody was the same musician.
The same,
yeah. Just before we let our next guest in, the composer for this year's compulsory piece, I just want to remind everybody on the Twitch stream that we are ending our giveaway for 4 sets of CDs. We have 2 sets of the Violin Edition 2019 and 2 boxes of this year's competition. So make sure you do enter while you still can. We've got a few more minutes. We're going to end this soon. The link will be in the chat stream, and we will now introduce Bruno, who is the composer of this year's compulsory piece. We got a lot of questions to ask you, Bruno. How are you doing today?
Hi.
And how does it feel to listen to your piece 6 times in a row in the most intense situation ever?
Yes, you're right. It's not the first time I write a piece for the competition. I wrote a piece for Brahms competition for flute and for ARD and in München for flute too. So, but it's always the same experience. It's a really, really good experience to listen to 6 young players here that have worked the piece in so fastly in 6 days. And it's just amazing to see how they really have their own version of this music. So I was really, really happy. But it's the first time I listened to the piece in the concert hall. I was listening to the other candidates from Paris by internet. So of course it's very different when you are here, even if there is no public. It's so interesting to feel the vibration we have in this fantastic Beaux-Arts.
Wow. I mean, that's really such an incredible opportunity, I think, also for a composer to just listen, right, to people that dedicated their lives intensely in that situation. Did you, just hearing the 6 finalists this year, everybody had a different interpretation. One that really stuck out to me was Redkins, where it became much more percussive than the rest. At least that was my observation. For you, was there anything that surprised you that you didn't even expect when you were composing this piece that came out to you?
Timothy, I cannot tell my preference now because the jury has to give the results. But I don't want to go out from the answer you are waiting for me. On a technical way, I was really surprised that some of the players were dividing the trills by 2 with the 2 hands, for example. Some of them were playing with 1 hand. So it was really interesting to see how they could adapt their technique to a so modern language. The second thing that seems to be really interesting for me is to see that they really played the concerto as they would play classical music or repertoire music. And in general, the problem I had on my music were the same problem I found in the repertory concerto, Brahms or Rachmaninoff. So it's really interesting to see that how they are coherent. They play modern music, they play music from the 19th century, but they had their own personality. That was really interesting for me.
Incredible.
I mean, I have a question about sort of the inspirations behind. I mean, I enjoyed listening to the piece so much and hearing all the incredible colors and textures, the breadth of the work in such a short amount of time. You're able to really put a lot of elements in. You know, I heard a lot of recalling resonances from Ravel, and I'm curious with Jardin Féerique, was there some kind of connection with also Mameloi and also with Messiaen? I think they were explaining this, and also just this idea of it being tied to someone so personal to you, your daughter. What elements, thinking also with Claude Debussy also writing music for his own daughter and dedicating to his daughter. What elements were inspiring you for this work that we heard?
In the middle, not on the middle, but on the end of the Jardin Féerique from Ravel, there is a chord that is, for me, one of the most beautiful chords of the history of music. It's a 9th chord, so on C, on the note C on the bass. And this chord, I have a personal history with that because I was conducting this piece in São Paulo, and I was waiting for children, but I didn't know it was a boy or a girl. And when I was conducting this piece, just before this chord, I had the idea that it was a girl. And it was a girl, and now she is a girl. So it's I have a sort of passion for this chord as a musician and as a father. And I would like to make a tribute to this chord. When Nicolas Dernancourt asked me to the commission for commissioning the piece, I told maybe it's a possibility to write this tribute to this famous chord. And this chord is beginning the piece. After the symbol is and you have this chord of Ravel coming here. It's like a bourdon, we say in music of the 13th or 14th century. And the piano is a kind of ornamentation of this chord. After, of course, the piano becomes more and more soloist, and there are many things that are happening. But there is this permanence of Ravel chord. Of course, it doesn't sound like Ravel music. It's not a pastiche from Ravel. It's not a copy of Ravel music. But there is always behind us this Ravel color.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Timmy.
We have a question here from the chat box. You were mentioning earlier that you were discussing some points via Zoom. Was there a common question that a lot of people asked about this certain piece that you can help explain? Or was there anything in particular that the finalists asked you about?
Well, the question they asked me were only questions about some mistakes on the text, on the piano part. But there was something common I told them. First thing, they have to be the more precise and the more respectuous of the score they can. But in the same moment, they have to be free and to have their own interpretation. In music, in other repertoire, you have some things that you can some objects in which you have to be personal, and some other you cannot negotiate. For example, in Johann Sebastian Bach, the ornamentation is on the beat, it's not before. It's an obligation. So I told them, I will tell you all the things you cannot negotiate because I really want that. After, do what you want. You see, there are two levels. The level that is really touching to my style, and the other level that is the level where for the interpretation and when the pianist has to feel free. You see the two layers.
Yes, absolutely. That's very interesting because I think every composer has a different approach to that, and especially the type of piece that they're writing. When I was doing the competition in 2019, I remember a lot of us looked at the score as like, ooh, like the Bible in some ways we had to respect. And then the composer came and they're like, actually, I don't know what I was writing here. Anyways, you just do whatever you want. But it's really interesting to note that there are moments. Comparatively to the semifinal round, where he was just like, I want this tempo. It's got to be within like 1 or 2 clicks. Otherwise, it's not what I wanted. So every composer, they have, and it depends on the piece and composition they're writing as well. It has a different amount of intention that they're expecting from the performer. But thank you so much, Bruno, for
thank you.
Continue.
No, just one sentence. I think, for example, on to choose the tempi, I didn't want to tell, please play at 60, because it's a competition. So they have to choose. It's a way to judge them, to see what they choose on the beginning, on the end of the piece. So feel free, take the score and play the music.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Bruno, thank you so much for your insights, and I really, really did enjoy listening to your piece 6 times. Every single one of the competitors played them very differently, and I hope to play some of your pieces. Do you have a violin piece?
Yes, I have a violin concerto I wrote for Capuçon, a solo violin piece, and violin and piano. A lot of violin music.
Okay.
I have.
I'm going to take a look at that. And we'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Bruno.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Oh, that's awesome to get to know the composer's perspective. We're going to keep going on now. We're going to replay the media video of the finalists, the 6 finalists tonight, and just sum up everybody's performance, and we'll just comment a little bit. If you guys are interested, feel free. We're open to, in the chat section, what is your own personal ranking of how this is all going to turn out? All right, let's put on the
Very
media.
exciting. Oh.
Here's Vitaly, Tchaikovsky. It's tough being the first competitor, I think. It's just so many uncontrollables, right? The orchestra is new. You don't know how the piece is sounding.
And they're all warming up as well as they go on in the week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had a question earlier on in the day. Do you find it, I mean, I don't know if you have a ring or not, but does it change the balance of actually playing the piano?
Usually the ring, even if it's like a heavy metal, it doesn't really change the balance. I think sometimes if it moves, my ring, sometimes it's too large for my hand. And if I'm sweating or there's perspiration, my fingers swell and it holds the ring better. So sometimes it actually can fly off during performances. So I just I choose not to wear rings, but it depends, I think, on your comfort level.
I see. All right, we have him here as well.
Prokofiev Second Concerto. One of the most gargantuan cadenzas written for the piano repertoire.
Yeah, someone was saying that the 3rd concerto used to be more popular, but the 2nd has been creeping up as the competition warhorse in recent years. Rock 3, that very, very iconic opening that's just so rhapsodic and gives a flavor of Russia.
It's, again, a beautiful, expansive and simple folk melody. I think there's this idea also.
Oldest.
Sergei was the oldest.
Out of the competitors this year. I mean, I think generally this year was a little bit on the late 20s side, and of course maybe it's because of COVID as well. But usually it's like a range of like there's usually one 18-year-old or like 19-year-old, and then it goes all the way up to 30.
True. 30, right?
We have Dmitri here also playing Rachmaninoff 3rd.
I think
it was only his 3rd time playing. Keep going.
Right. The second Prokofiev concerto is creeping up now. I think just because it's considered to be more difficult than the 3rd. So I think as levels of competitors continue to rise over the years, we're getting a lot more, of these kinds of concerti creeping up into finals as well.
Perfect. So I just heard that the results are being announced now. So let's cut off to that.
Goodness.
It's very exciting. Very nervous. That went by very fast.
I am nervous.
I'm not envious of any of these people right now. I'm not envious. I'm happy.
I don't want it. I don't want it. No.
I have my popcorn right now.
Majesté, dames en heren, mesdames et messieurs, au nom du jury, de tous les candidats et lauréats, ainsi que des organisateurs du concours Reine Elisabeth, je tiens à remercier Sa Majesté la Reine pour son soutien sans faille dans la préparation et l'élaboration de ce concours. Majesteit, uw voortdurende bezorgdheid voor het welslagen van dit toch wel bijzondere wedstrijdjaar was voor ons een permanente aanmoediging om door te zetten en het concours vooralsnog mogelijk te maken. Heel hartelijk dank. Ik dank ook graag met veel bewondering en sympathie alle leden van de pers en de equipes van de media hier aanwezig. En in het bijzonder voor de finale het team van de VRT. Ook al mochten we geen publiek in de zaal ontvangen, toch voelden wij ons dankzij jullie uitzendingen nooit alleen. It has also been a true privilege to work and to live with the members of the jury. They traveled to Brussels in order to help their young colleagues to start their careers. These weeks have been essential to them, but also to us, their future audience. We have had the chance to discover 58 exquisite musicians, and we are so grateful for their participation in this contest. Thank you so much. Now I would like to announce the ranking of the laureates. Eerste prijs, grote internationale prijs, Koningin Elisabeth, prijs Koningin Mathilde. Premier prix, Grand Prix international Reine Elisabeth, Prix de la Reine Mathilde. First prize, Queen Elizabeth International Grand Prize, Queen Mathilde Prize. Monsieur Jonathan Fournel.
Bravo!
Oh, look at that. Final performer of the night. The statistics are right.
Yes.
I mean, he played amazingly, of course, but like, it just proves that even more so. Congratulations, Jonathan. What do you guys, what do y'all think in which room?
I was just going to say, this is so cool, yeah. What an exciting moment. And Timmy, it is like one of those like moments, like defining moments where, you know, someone's career changes to be the first prize winner of the Queen Elisabeth competition.
Exactly.
Or the second, or whatever it might be. Just to be a winner is just,
incredible.
I mean, this is very cool, the elbow bumps now.
Exactly. Yeah, someone's career is literally being made as we're streaming this right now.
As we're watching this, yeah.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo, bravo.
Deuxième prix, prix du gouvernement fédéral belge, offert par la politique scientifique fédérale, prix Arthur de Greef. Tweede prijs, prijs van de Belgische federale regering, aangeboden door het federaal wetenschapsbeleid, prijs Arthur de Greef. Second prize, prize of the Belgian federal government, awarded by the Belgian Science Policy Arthur de Greef Prize. Mr. Sergei Redkin.
Wow.
Oh.
Bravo.
Bravo. Well deserved.
Back three, very nice.
Rachmaninoff third
Very,
concerto.
very nice. Beautiful playing. Bravo. Yeah.
You know, the special thing about this year's competition is that everybody is going to be a top rank because there's only 6 of them to begin with. So they all knew coming in that they were going to, you know, going to be on tour, they're going to have opportunities. This is fantastic. Yeah.
That's right, because they all come with a prize package and performances.
Troisième prix, Prix Condelaunois, third prize, Condelaunois Prize. Mr. Keigo Mukawa.
Wow.
Oh,
Bravo.
Prokofiev second
This is
concerto.
Prokofiev second, yeah. Very, very nice.
Yes.
Is he the youngest contestant? Can you remind me? Or who was the youngest?
I don't think so. The youngest one was, I think, the first competitor, Vitaly.
Ah, okay.
I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Vitaly and
Very,
Dmitry
very
Sin. They
exciting.
were the 26, yeah. Comment here we have is congrats Keigo, right? Congrats. Bravo,
Yeah.
bravo.
I remember he played a beautiful Rachmaninoff, I think, Corelli variations at some point. Very, very evocative and fearless playing. Wonderful. Very nice.
Vierter Preis. Preis von den Regierungen der Gemeinschaften Belgiens. Verliehen dieses Jahr von der Regierung der deutschsprachigen Gemeinschaft. Vierde prijs. Prijs van de gemeenschapsregeringen van België. Dit jaar aangeboden door de regering van de Duitsstalige gemeenschap. Quatrième prix. Prix des gouvernements communautaires de Belgique, offert cette année par le gouvernement de la communauté germanophone. Mr. Tomoki Sakata.
Ah.
Bravo, another drum.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we had the same teacher in Germany, from Hannover.
Oh, Hannover.
So our paths have crossed, in years past. So it's very nice to see him receive a prize here. Bravo.
Were you classmates at any point?
I don't think we overlapped, or we might have overlapped a little bit in Hannover.
Prijs van het Brussels hoofdstedelijk gewest. Cinquième prix. Prix de la région de Bruxelles-Capitale. Fifth prize. Brussels Capital Region Prize. Mr. Vitaly Starikov.
Bravo. You know what's weird about this competition is that they actually tell you
From the front, from the first,
down.
right? Yeah, exactly. I thought it's good. It kind of gets rid of the nerves, right? It's just like, okay, that's done. First prize is taken.
That's done. Exactly. It's like, who's left at this point? Bravo. And last prize, of course, goes to Dmitry Sin. All winners in my book. You're all going to have fantastic careers. This is amazing what's being done right now.
Sixième prix.
It can't be an easy decision.
Prijs, sixth prize. Prijs van de stad Brussel. Prix de la ville de Bruxelles. City of Brussels Prize. Mr. Dmitry Sin.
Very well deserved. I mean,
Bravo.
like you said, anyone
Very
can be
well
ranked anyway.
Yeah. You're all part of the Queen Elizabeth family now, making
Right.
history because of the COVID situation. You know, it's not a natural, I mean, nothing is natural to play in front of a large audience, but even more so to be in a competition of this level without a public. I think this is hopefully once in a lifetime, and you never know what's going to happen in the future, but definitely the first.
Truly historic to me, you're right.
Majesteit,
Really amazing.
dames en heren, mesdames et messieurs. Er rest mij alleen nog u allen thuis te danken voor uw nooit aflatend enthousiasme. Wij kregen dagelijks tientallen berichten van steun. Nous sommes donc impatients de vous retrouver en live l'année prochaine pour le concours Reine Elisabeth violoncelle. Bonne nuit, goedenacht.
Bravo, bravo, everyone.
Bravo. The question at me.
What an exciting close.
Yeah.
Oui.
Yes.
And I always
Wow.
love the
This is,
multiple languages.
Yeah. You speak Italian, right,
yeah.
David?
I speak Italian and I speak some French as well. This is really exciting. Wow.
Very exciting. Wow. He looks happy. He looks very, very happy.
Yeah.
Mais félicitations, je vais encore le répéter une fois. Vous êtes le gagnant du concours Reine Elisabeth 2021. Qu'est-ce qui vous passe par la tête en ce moment?
What's
What does he feel this right now?
Pour l'instant, c'est vrai que c'est assez impressionnant. Ouais, c'est aussi soulagé aussi que tout soit fini et puis je suis
He's
aussi
finished.
content de pouvoir continuer à
He's very happy.
participer avec Sergei et Keigo.
Que signifie ce prix pour vous?
Pardon?
Que signifie ce prix pour vous?
What's the significance of this prize for you?
Tout le travail.
Oui, c'était tellement de travail de
So much work.
Yeah, lots of hard work. Yeah.
C'était tellement intense pendant les derniers mois, ça s'arrachait la tête tout le temps.
Mais c'est fini.
Midi et soir,
C'est fini le marathon. Qui est la première personne?
It's finished now. He's had a headache since last year about preparing for this competition.
Dans mes bras, c'est certainement ma copine. Voilà.
C'est bien. Peut-être il y a quelqu'un qui vous voulez déjà remercier maintenant.
Que je veux remercier maintenant, oui, alors à la fois mes parents, enfin ma famille, mes grands-parents,
Making his family,
qui étaient là aussi présents, donc finalement Louis Lorty, Avoco Yomjian,
Louis Lorty,
Gisèle
Lovely.
aussi Franck Bralé, puisqu'il j'ai aussi travaillé avec lui ces derniers temps, lorsque Louis Lorty ne pouvait pas être disponible à cause du Covid pour venir donner des cours à la chapelle.
Mais donc une longue liste
de personnes. Augustin Dumay aussi, très chaleureusement.
Encore une dernière question. Avez-vous déjà des projets pour les prochaines semaines
Last question is,
non,
what does he have for the projects of next
Mais
week?
c'est bien. Et n'oubliez pas de prendre aussi le temps de célébrer votre
ce soir,
victoire. Voilà.
Ce soir.
Vous avez bien
To celebrate his victory
right away.
Merci.
I would be too.
Wow,
Oh,
well
bravo.
deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved. This is so weird because usually in the final round, like when they go up to the first prize, it's like 17 microphones up at once. But COVID is a different scenario right now.
It seemed more civil, definitely.
More civil. Yeah, well, congratulations to all of the winners, and you're all deserved. I can't imagine what's going through your minds right now. It's a huge accomplishment, mentally tiring. It's going to take them probably a year to actually process all of this. I know for me, it took me a year to at least just analyze and process what I went through, and it's something that we've been preparing since. I mean, you want to say it's like 1 year before, but in our minds, I feel like it's several years before because it's a life goal.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I love that question that they asked her as well about just this idea of, oh yeah, like who do you have to thank? And he's like, my parents, like my mentors, because all of us where we are in our careers right now, it's just completely thanks to the team of people around us since we were born and this ongoing nurturing of talent. It takes a village, truly.
Our parents are incredible. I mean, I don't think people realize like the amount of unconditional support that has to be part of the recipe in order to making it through to this competition or just anything really in music, because it's not an easy industry to succeed in, and to keep that optimism. There's a lot of failures. It's kind of like that iceberg that you see on Google or on social media. It's like you see the tip of the iceberg, but below it's like hard work, no sleep, failures. It's just the list goes on. But yet at the same time, what we want to present is this idea of success. And I'm sure every one of these have gone through tough times, and this is finally one moment when they can actually say all of that has paid off.
And one of those things about being a musician is how many no's do you get, and how many no's and hurdles do you have to jump before you get to that yes. And people just remember that yes. And so that's what I always try to remind everyone who's coming up, is just keep going. Be like the cork that when you get pushed down, just float back up and keep going. And if anything, just for the love of music. And it's truly not for everyone. So yeah, very exciting.
Exactly. Well, speaking of results, I also have the results of the giveaway. Thank you for everybody that, put in an application, or what is it? Entered the draw, I would say, not application. I'm getting too competition minded. So the winners are Simon D. LOL, Nevercat 1, Torsica, and QB. I'm going to do that one more time. Simon D. LOL, Nevercat 1, Torsica, and QB. So congratulations to all of you. You are going to receive a CD from the Queen Elisabeth competition. Please send a private message to this channel. We need to have your information so we can send these out to you. And I really just want to say a big thank you to you, David. You've been an incredible guest on this Twitch stream, and so amazing. I understand. Yeah, of course. I mean, you're also a professor at University of Georgia right now. Incredible to have such an incredible career, that you have such an incredible performer. Also teaching everything that you've experienced as a pianist and a performer, going through all these incredible milestones, and yet sharing it with the younger generation. I just want to say that's not an easy thing to do, and it's a very commendable and respectable position to be in. So everybody, thank you for giving your full attention to David and me today. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, just the typical avenues there. I usually do a little bit of tweeting, but these days it's just been a repeat of what I've been posting elsewhere. But you can always hit me up and reach out with any questions you have on Insta and Facebook.
Yeah, feel free to contact any of us that have been on this show so far, and even to me. DM me, would love to hear from you. I'll respond. I usually respond, and I love to do that. And everyone that has joined us on the Twitch stream, I want to say a huge thank you to you all, because this is our first time doing this, and it's become incredibly successful. We've had anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 people watching every single night, which is incredible. That's literally like, you know, how many is that? Like a concert hall every night, if not double the concert hall. And this is just incredible, the reach that we're able to access on here. And you know, it's just been incredible, and we're going to do an after party on my Twitch stream. So feel free, if you just want to, like, you know, ask anything ridiculous that I didn't get to answer yet. And in the meantime, make sure you find out more about the Queen Elisabeth competition. We're being very active on social media these days, sharing all of the previous archives of performances, interviews, and just all the information you need to know if you want to come in person for the next edition, which will be for cello in 2022. Thank you, everyone. So we'll call it a night. It's been great. Thank you, David. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye.